Welcome to the Final Prizes Soup, another Spooktober 2023 game presented by a fairly large team consisting of Fornoki Shino, of Who's the Red Queen, the Cheeses Atropos, Pumpkin Spike, who did the Spirit Killing, Exorcist Killing series of O2A2 games. In terms of games I've covered on here, we have a whole collection of artists, designers. Check out the credits for specific credits. There's so many to name here. I'd recognize all the names here, but they're all extremely talented folks. And I will probably horribly stumble over most names. But alas, this is the final prize, is soup. Are we here for soup? We are, in fact, here for soup. This is a survival horror Unity visual novel. And as the story goes, we have died. But we've been chosen for the game of life, a chance to come back to life. 3 worlds, 3 rounds, win all 3, and we will avert our fated death. Lose, and our bones are forfeit for tomorrow's lunch broth. Good luck. Our ghosts have prepared their takeout containers, all plastic, non-microwavable. Very good. This game touts 2 major endings, plenty of dead ends, 5 CGs. A very emotional tale. A full story. So on that note, before I stumble over myself too much further, within a crackling red, a suffocating black, my mind seemed to take form from countless ashes. A falling sensation jolted me awake, but my body would not move. A weight upon my legs, a haze upon my consciousness, as if the flow of blood had congealed within my veins. Ooh. I opened my heavy eyelids, and met Red. A girl wearing a red dress sat upon my lap, looking at me like one would look at a particularly droll statue in a dull museum. I meant to push her off of me, yet I was unable to make more than the slightest twitch. In the folly of the design of human flesh, unlike wooden marionettes, despite the stiffness of my muscles and joints, I could still feel the hard seat and back rest. I tried to speak, and in more of the same, my voice did not move. She too did not speak. Finally, her eyes, red as blood, met mine. As if acknowledging me, as if dismissing me, she stepped down to the ground. In doing so, she opened up my line of sight. I glanced around, still frozen. This was a place filled with shadows and little else. I seemed to spot the outline of a door by a far wall, which was also covered in darkness. Thus a glint of light where there was no light instantly caught my eye. A blade. A scalpel. The girl held a small surgical knife that, at this very moment, she let go of. That which fell to the ground, rather than clink or bounce, was devoured by the floor and melted away. A fanciful thought flitted across my mind that this was all a dream. She did not speak. I could not speak. My tongue stiff in my mouth, my limbs feeling not my own. Slowly, I regained control of my body and pushed myself up to my feet. A wave of vertigo washed over me as I wobbled to balance. I glanced behind me, finding the chair that I must have been sitting on, in the same darkness that covered the rest of this place. Finished, I warily looked back toward the girl. Where was this? Who was she? I tried to remember how I arrived at this situation. Nothing. I couldn't remember anything, instead feeling a budding headache at my temple and a sour sensation bubbling up in my gut. No one would search for me. A face crossed my mind as if to contradict me. Maybe that person who I pushed away would. But the thought didn't give me any sense of relief. You have already died. Then an unfamiliar voice, the voice of the girl wearing red, broke the silence. This is the afterlife, the courts of the or from the final court, the 11th court, where you will be judged. I was dead, she said. This was the afterlife, she said. To think that my forebears were right. Courts were a major part of the traditional subterranean afterlife of Diu, a concept formed from a mixture of Buddhist ideals and traditional Chinese ideas. The number was commonly stated to be 10, but I have heard of variants, albeit not 11. Then again, this wasn't my area of study, but rather information that person would mention now and then when something piqued her interest. Was I in such great shock that my mind would wander so? So, I'm dead. You're Hailu? Hailu? Yes. She looked at me as if I were a fool. Without waiting, she continued her script. I am the judge of the 11th court of hell. You have been disqualified from entering the cycle of reincarnation by your sins in life. Your fate as a sinner will be determined by this court. Therefore, you may not drink Meng Po's forgetfulness soup. Meng Po was a goddess at Naihei Bridge in the underworld, serving a soup that would wipe the memory of all that drank it. All souls had to drink the soup before they could reincarnate into the next life, stripped from the burdens of their previous life. Instead, you are given a chance to participate in a trial set by the king of the 11th court. A game of life. 3 rounds, 3 tests. Should you pass all 3, then you will be brought forth before the court to win the qualification for rebirth or undo your death. What did it mean to undo my death? I narrowed my eyes in contemplation, thinking of all the false claims of resurrection made by religious fanatics of all sorts. Of course I wanted to live again. Somewhere deep in my bones, I'd already accepted that I was dead. What sorts of tests? Dangerous enough, and difficult enough. What happens if I refuse to enter this game of life? You will be judged to have lost and be eaten alive. You have no obligation to participate. Simply do nothing, and everything will end with time. No, just wanted to check. I have no intention of giving up before I even get started. I looked around again, finding no one but her and me. Why was I the only one chosen for this? Why do you think that? There are plenty of other dead who will also play this game. Deciding whether you want to fight over the prize with them once you meet is your prerogative. Low bell rang. She tilted her head upward, gazing into the dark. My task here is finished. I have been called away by the king, so I will take my leave now. Not looking for an answer from me, she turned to leave and stepped partway into the shadows before pausing. She glanced back toward me and pointed at the door by the far wall. Just one more thing. Pass through that door to enter the first test, the first game. If you are still interested in playing. Then she walked fully into the shadows and disappeared from my sight. I was now all alone. All I had left to do was walk through the door, but I hesitated. The continuing low sound of the bell sent chills down my spine. As I stalled, the darkness approached, before I realized the chair behind me was swallowed whole. I stumbled, trying to avoid the shadows that had reached my feet. It extended toward me. I backed away further, but despite the black barely touching my shoes, I felt it like hands upon my neck, cold yet burning. I gasped, forcing myself toward the door, tearing off the invisible things grabbing me. They seemed to try to drag me back, making my skin burn. I ran. I had to run. The darkness chased. I reached the door. I could not see the other side, despite it appearing more like a hole in the wall than a door now that I was mere steps away. I had to go. Propelling myself through it with my hands against the frame, I passed through the doorway. Strange light, so familiar in the absence of light, enveloped me. Then I was falling. Oh God, I'm falling. Grunted as I dropped unceremoniously to the ground. Despite landing on my feet, I slipped on the wet grass and rolled a couple meters down the hill. Ow. Oof. Ow. Yeah. It took me a moment to reorient myself on the ground. When the world finally stopped spinning, I stood, brushed the dirt off my clothes as best I could, and observed my surroundings. There wasn't much to comment on. I was in a deserted part of a dark forest. Trees and shrubbery surrounded me on all sides. Visibility was minimal, but moonlight streamed through gaps within the leaves. Suddenly, a rustling sound broke through the natural quietude. Eh? Perhaps I wasn't alone after all. There was something in the foliage. Oh? Before I could investigate, a familiar voice filled the sky. Welcome to the first round of the game of life. It was the girl in the red dress. Like her voice came from the speakers of a stadium, she was nowhere to be seen, yet could be heard everywhere. The rules are simple. You have 9 hours to arrive at the bottom of the mountain. Alive, of course. I'll be your judge. Good luck. I made back a chuckle. She couldn't hide the sarcasm in her well wishes if she tried. Well, at least downhill was always easier than uphill. I began walking in the direction the ground seemed to slope downward. I did my best to ignore the eerie feeling of something watching me from within the foliage as I searched my pockets. Did I have anything that might help me get down the mountain in one piece? Not much at all. No wallet, no phone, not even my lighter. At least the moon was bright tonight. Despite the darkness of the forested mountain, I had enough light to ensure I wouldn't walk right into a tree. 9 hours wasn't a terribly long time, but it was enough to lose strength to thirst and hunger. Thankfully, I didn't feel hungry or thirsty right now. But just in case, should I spend some time looking for a river, or... Sharp scream sliced through my thoughts and sent a shiver up my spine, making my heart race in my chest. I jumped at the sound, turning in every direction to identify its origin. Ah! Then as the scream began to diminish, the noise of crunching and squelching, reminding me of a large dog feasting upon a fleshy reward, reached my ears. Oh, that's concerning. I ran toward the source. It might have been dangerous, but I couldn't just leave someone in danger. So I naively thought. Dashing toward the noise, I felt my stomach turn as the animalistic eating increased in volume, and further dread came upon me as I realized that I could no longer hear the person. I skidded to a stop before a ridge, finding that the level ground stopped a few meters in front of me. The sound came from below. Walking toward the edge to peer down, but I wondered if they would be alright. That train of thought died as soon as I saw what became of the person, or what became of the remains of the person. They were dead. That wasn't a person. That wasn't a human being. That was just a pile of flesh. Oh, hello there. A few meters below the ridge where I stood, a pack of monsters hunched over something terribly red, tearing inwards to the lifeless sack of what must have been a human. Ah. Words were caught in my throat. My lungs stuttered with each breath. As much as my brain screamed at me to run, I couldn't tear my eyes from the scene. Right before they noticed you! As soon as I thought that, one of the monsters suddenly turned its head. Red dots in the depths of its black pits met my eyes. If those teeth caught me, I would be done. No, I totally didn't just get jump scared by this thing. Since the equilibrium collapsed, my legs turned to jelly, causing me to fall behind. Oh, hello. It let out a howl and jumped towards me, thankfully unable to climb up the ridge to reach me. Yet, sensing my presence above the ridge, just a few meters tall, it began to slam and scrape against the rocks to find a handle to climb upward. That was finally enough for my brain to get my legs to work. I scrambled to my feet and ran. I dashed through the forest in the opposite direction to those creatures, hoping I was still going downhill and not into a den of monsters. As I ran past trees and shrubs, a sudden light caught my eye. A bobbing orb within the foliage appeared to be approaching me, the light flickering in and out as it disappeared behind leaves intermittently. My breath hitched. No, no, no. I didn't know what that light could be, but considering I just saw a pack of monsters eating the last person that screamed, I didn't want to find out and picked another direction to run. How many more monsters can be? As I twisted, the ground beneath me disappeared. My foot hit something hard and the sky swung out of my field of view as grass and rocks came hurtling toward me. Ah! I crashed onto the ground, just barely able to stop myself from face-planting straight into the dirt. Terror gripped my heart. Did something catch me? I turned around, I saw only a metal pipe and a hiking backpack on the ground. What tripped me was nothing more than a pair of inanimate objects, innocuously scattered apart by my impact. Their presence was almost laughable in the face of what I imagined. My internet-rotted brain is just, is jumping to the fact that we're in an afterlife battle royal and we just found a loot drop. My heart wanted to relax, and I'm so sorry. My heart wanted to relax and stop thumping for a moment, filled with self-ridicule and at my overreaction. Then I saw the light flickering through the trees again. Too close! Too close! I had to leave now! I struggled to my feet, but for that one moment of relaxation took more of a toll on me than I expected. My legs wobbled and the glow was upon me before I could get up. I squeezed my eyes shut, bracing myself for the end. Ugh. I was done for. Whatever monster I was running away from was going to eat me. The first bite never came. Instead, I heard human footsteps shuffle closer to my position before stopping. The light swept over my closed eyelids, then shifted out of my face. Whoever stood before me did not speak. However, perhaps it wasn't a monster? It is... friend? When I opened my eyes, it was a pretty face that greeted me, her usual gloomy disposition broken by the surprise in her eyes. It was a familiar face, her eyes averting mine as she too recognized me. Was I dreaming? Mimi? My heart started thumping for a different reason, cold sweat breaking out from nervous awkwardness instead of fear. Oh. She was Mimi. No. Not Mimi. Her name was Sheng Yanzhu, and my former girlfriend. I used the term former not because I had died, but because we broke up a few weeks ago. And it wasn't... I swallowed those feelings like I swallowed her name from my lips. Miss... Lulu? Can-Hai-Lu? Yes. Yanshu. Ah, sorry. We spoke each other's full names, mutually discarding the pet names that we once called each other when we had been in love. Can-Hai-Lu and Chen Yanshu were no longer dating. Can-Hai-Lu and Chen Yanshu were dead. I finally gathered my thoughts. I didn't expect to see you here. Neither did I. You're here for the game of life as well? Rhetorical question. Who would go hiking deep in the mountains at this hour of the night? Certainly not me, Chen Yanshu. She's much more of an indoor girl. Yes. At least the task seems simple. We just have to get to the bottom of the mountain. It's always easier to go down than up. Like our relationship? Easy, there were monsters on our tail. Monsters? Yeah, I saw them eating one of the contestants. I didn't know how to best describe the scene, my blood running cold as I remembered vividly the monsters eating. However, it seemed I didn't need to. She didn't doubt my words. She trembled as she looked at her phone, and it took everything to not reach out to give her a comforting hug. This was a bad dream. We would wake up after, and we would be... I sighed internally. Why did I do this to myself? I couldn't let the past cloud over the present. Still looking at the way she clutched her phone, trembling at the mere mention of monsters, made me waver in my convictions. It occurred to me that she would never make it out alive on her own. Alive, that seemed to be the wrong phrase. I can't believe we're both dead. That's one hell of a coincidence. Coincidence? A horrible one, but yeah. Unless there's something we're not remembering. What was the line for interacting with and helping your ex? Despite my indecision, there was one thing I had no doubt about. It didn't matter that we broke up. I didn't want her to be dead. Should we team up? Terror was still evident in her face, but there was a light of hope in her eyes from my words. She hesitantly reached out a hand toward me, but retracted it before I could hold her. The slight shake of her head and a slight nod, she gave me the slightest smile. If you'll have me. Alright, we'll work this out. We'll figure this out. We chatted about our situation for a few more minutes and debated on what we should do. We couldn't find an answer beyond playing this cruel game. Yanju tilted her head towards the objects on the ground. What do we have here? Alright, what's in our loot box? We dug through the backpack I tripped over. A couple bottles of water, a variety of snacks, and a first aid kit. Pulled the items out one by one to show Yanju. I guess this... I picked up the metal pipe laying by the backpack and swung it a couple of times. I didn't harbor any optimism about its effectiveness against man-eating monsters, but it was a weapon. There's a note from 11. Lucky boxes will be scattered throughout the mountain for players to use as they please. Were these loot crates? I suppose this is one of them. 11? Oh, the girl in the red dress. She appeared to tell me I'm dead. Did she not appear before you too? I think it was her voice who announced the start of the game. I held my hand out for the note, which Yanju handed to me. The calligraphy on the red paper was stunning, taking me out of this dreary forest for a moment. Each delicate curve and stroke perfectly sized, indicating masterful control of the brush. I felt my lips curl upward involuntarily, a softness filling my chest. There was a saying that beautiful people had beautiful handwriting. It was unfair. Oh, her, yeah. She appeared in front of me, too. She never gave me a name, so I've just been calling her 11 in my head. I see. I don't know her name either. It'd be easier to call her 11. Briefly wondered what her real name was. So I repacked the backpack. I decided to ask the next time I saw her. Yanju. Gotta hope I'm pronouncing that right. She looked up from her phone and guiltily placed it in sleep mode. Have you tried calling for help? She chewed on her lip and shook her head before turning the phone on again to call. No service. There's no signal. What has she been using that phone for this whole time? Light? That's too bad. Hey, maybe you should turn that off. I can barely see our surroundings with that blue light. I'm sorry. Besides, what if it runs out of battery at a time we need it? Oh, that's not a problem. Oh? Battery pack? My mouth dropped open, but words could not adequately describe my shock as I watched her fish through her pockets and pull out a hand crank charger. See? And now I can use my phone as much as I want. Charging your phone like that would still take time. Let's leave it on sleep mode for now until we find somewhere safe with reception. Oh, okay. She agreed and put her phone away without a fight. Cute phone. Cat ear case. Love it. Back on my shoulders, I metal pipe in my hand, and Yanju following closely behind me, resumed our journey to the bottom of the mountain. We walked, and walked, walked, for a long time. I couldn't tell how long we'd been walking. Was this even downward? What if a monster appeared beyond the next bush? Every rustle of foliage, every breeze of mountain air, every single sound kept the two of us on edge, especially when the ground went up and down and shadows moved with the moon. Despite my anxieties, I kept my face stoic. If I broke down now, I would never make it through this game alive. Not just me, but her, too. Eventually, Eleven's voice came once again from the sky. It is now the hour of the ox. You have 4 more hours to make it to the base of the mountain. 4 more hours meant that we had a little less than half the time left. Didn't know why the judge felt so kind as to let us know the time, but something else she had said had bothered me. Hour of the ox. Why was that animation so cute? Just like she's just bounding up to us to tell us. It means the hours between 1 and 3 in the morning. Oh, learn something new every day. She's so excited to tell us too. That's cute. We continued to walk, following the slight slope downwards. Some mountains could take days to climb. The same probably held true for descending such mountains. I could only hope this wasn't one of them. Though my legs grew tired, I trekked onward with Yanju. I could feel my pace slowing, with the distance between us seemed to be growing each moment. Thus I slowed to a stop and turned to look at her. I couldn't keep ignoring the panting behind me. Yanju really wasn't made for the outdoors. Yanju? Let's take a break. As soon as the words left my mouth, I felt the weight upon my shoulders rush through my whole body, and the aching of my feet intensified. I can keep going. I shook my head. No, I'm tired as well. This backpack is killing me. Thud. With a thump, I dropped the backpack to the ground and took a seat in a grassy patch by some foliage. I rubbed my shoulder, stretching a bit. Began to rummage through the backpack for the food and water we found inside before. Some refreshments would go a long way right now. It was an awful night for a morning picnic. Or for a midnight picnic, but I handed her a bottle of water anyways. Rummaging through the snacks included in the lucky box, I picked out some potato chips and pretzels for Yanchi. He perked up immediately. Oh, took the bag, enthusiastically tearing it open and munching happily on the snacks. I smiled. She always looked the cutest eating her favorite salty foods. Oh. I bit back the smile and forced a frown. Need to stop thinking like this. We ate mostly in silence. Perhaps it was due to the fact that there were monsters hunting us, or perhaps it was due to this being the first meal we shared since breaking up. It didn't matter. I wasn't able to think of anything I was willing to say anyways. After eating, Yanju sat cross-legged by me and took out her phone and hand crank. I suppose we were safer now than before, since I didn't hear any monsters nearby. Taking a quick glance around, I couldn't see anything in our proximity. I couldn't scold her for this. Oh. Turned the crank in her hand, brows drawn and completely focused on the task. At the speed she was going at, wouldn't generate nearly enough energy to charge a temporary lamp for 2 minutes, let alone a phone. Let's scout the area. Decide to leave her to it. Take a look around the area. Oh, okay. She looked as though she wanted to say more, but decided to focus on her phone once again. Good thing she averted her eyes, because I couldn't keep my face from pinching up in annoyance. I sighed as I turned away. Oh no, even in death. I barely walked far enough for the sounds of her hand crank to disappear when the temperature around me dropped several degrees. Strange. Was that normal in the forest? Never spent too much time in the woods at night. I pulled my jacket tighter around me against the sudden chill. Probably was. I'd best... Huh? Levin suddenly appeared from atop a tree. Her feet delicate on the branch, red dress a stark contrast to the world around us. I must be seeing things. As soon as I thought that, however, the image of Eleven proved me wrong and alighted with the tree, dropping elegantly to the dirt below. Since she shook her clothes as if to ensure no specks of dust and dirt managed to stick itself on the hem of her skirt. I chewed my bottom lip to prevent myself from smiling. Why'd she remind me of a cat preening itself in preparation for me to pet? What are you doing here? Eleven gave me a sharp look, clicking her tongue again. I am the judge. Of course I have to be here to ensure everything goes smoothly for the trial given by the king of the 11th court. I see. A solid reason, even if it made my heart miss a beat in disappointment. We stood in silence for a few moments, and sensing that I was losing my chance, I quickly asked, Can I ask you a few questions? It's a right all creatures with a brain and a voice have. May I? And if she meant it as a somewhat sarcastic insult, I couldn't help but want to laugh. I bit my bottom lip again in order to keep my chuckle contained. Is there more to judging than just passing the games? Of course there is. Perhaps I ought to cozy up with you to get better marks. Evan raised an eyebrow at me, and for a moment I was afraid she took my joke seriously. Just kidding. Let sleeping tigers lie. She might have had a pretty face, but I wasn't a naive fool. She was far too suspicious to trust, let alone cozy up to. A joke or two was fine, but anything more would be foolish on my part. Are you that impatient for reincarnation? Oh, I don't really care for that. I just want to go back to being alive. For that life of yours, even though it ended so cruelly. She spoke as if she knew of how I died, but the question stopped upon the tip of my tongue. Just for a moment, I wondered if I wanted to know. She shook her head. I'll get it. It's always the brightest flames that burn the most beautiful and the fastest. I didn't see how that applied to me. What about you, then? You'd rather be reincarnated? I don't have anything to miss in my old life, so I certainly wouldn't care to return to it. Besides, I wouldn't be allowed to. What? Levin suddenly turned, saying her next words over her shoulder. You ought to get moving. Are you sure you can waste time chatting with me like old scholars at a tea shop? It's not a waste of time if it entertains you. You failing in the first game would be plenty entertaining, too. If Despite the coldness of her choice of words, I felt a sense of care and comfort in her tone. Then she disappeared into the night before I could retort. Looked around the area, seeing no traces left of 11, and shook my head. Huh. It was for the best. She was right. I shouldn't be wasting time. Made my way back to where Yanshu was sitting. Once she saw me, she put the hand crank away and stood. Based on her restless expression, it was likely that she couldn't get the phone to charge much. Let's get going. Yes. We walked in silence again. There wasn't much to talk about, and most of our energy was spent keeping our ears and eyes out for monsters. For what felt like hours of being on edge, our fragile peace was destroyed. Perhaps we grew complacent. Perhaps the trees and bushes blocked the way, moonlight hitting our eyes too harshly. Uh-oh. Don't know if I saw them first or heard them first. A pair of monsters knelt in the clearing, teeth ripping into the remains of someone's leg. White bone gleamed in the moonlight, sinews still fresh and red. Barely had a chance to exhale when their ears twitched and 4 red dots pointed in our direction. Oh boy, run! I shoved Yanju behind me, and as the first monster swiped at me, I barely parried it with a metal pipe. Hey Lou! Get out of here! Look for help or find a weapon! Oh god. The other arm reached out to me and I smashed the pipe against it, the sound of nails on metal making me cringe. But hey Lou, you... Oh god! Ah! Ah! Monster interrupted her with a howl, and I held the metal pipe in front of me, just in time to block a paw of pointy, rotten teeth from biting my face off. Can't you listen to me? You're just a liability. Hurry up and get out of here. I heard the crunch of leaves as she ran away. Looking back at the 2 monsters, I swallowed nervously. Put up a brave face in front of Yanju, but all I wanted to do was to run with her. If I ran, they would come after both of us. It would be the end for both of us. Monsters let out a growl into the skin around their mouths. No, those weren't lips. Stretched into what felt like a smile. The next sounds were breathy, repeated growls. Were they laughing? Fuck you, don't laugh at me. Their overconfidence annoyed me. Ah! Raised the pipe. I dashed toward the closest monster. The monster's eyes widened in surprise as I bashed its head with a pipe. Dropped to the ground and momentarily stunned as the other monster leapt towards me. I swiped the pipe again, hitting its shoulder, and thankfully was able to redirect its path enough to miss landing on me. The other monster was back, however, and I barely rolled out of its way as it sank its claws into the ground where I was standing. I pushed myself up to a crouching position just in time for one of the monsters to leap at me again. Time to run. I raised the pipe in an attempt to shield myself, but... The monster screamed as the pipe snagged on its skin, slicing as it made the swing. Toward its torso. Through its torso. It was enough to kill it, but the monster dropped to the ground beside me, clutching itself and writhing in pain. Pipe, thanks to the momentum, bent at a near 90-degree angle. The other monster looked at its companion, then back at me. I'll kill you too! If they understood my words, that was hardly a threat. It was certainly not scared. Ah! The second monster leapt at me, as I held the pipe up to the block. Yanshu, It was okay. Yanshu would come back. She might have been flaky and often used to this, but she wasn't one to leave others behind, especially not against monsters and death. She had to hold out until Yanshu came back. I changed my stance with the pipe at the last minute. Just as the monster reached out its claws, I swung the pipe back, hitting it right across the jaw and sending it flying, along with half the pipe. It was too short to be a weapon now. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. As a good distance away, the monster was still dazed from the hit I gave its head, but it wouldn't be long before it recovered. Should I try to run? How far would I be able to get? Could I actually outrun? A blur appeared before my eyes and cut my panicked thoughts short. Die! Holy shit! Carrying a large rock, she bashed it over the monster's head. Yanshu's skinny arms were unexpectedly able to carry its weight as she hit it over and over again. Damn! Combined with the blow I gave it earlier, the monster finally lost its strength to fight back and stopped moving at the ground by Yanshu's feet. Yanshu gasped as she dropped the rock, staring at the lifeless monster with tears in her eyes. She stumbled backwards, lost, her arms shaking. The rock must have been very heavy. And as she looked toward me, safe and alive, she gave me an expression of relief that must have been matched by whatever expression was on my face right now. The monsters were defeated, and we were all right. However, I didn't know how many monsters there were on this mountain. If any of them heard the sound of our fight, then they might come our way. Neither Yanju and I were prepared to fight another set of monsters. The only thing we could do right now was run to this finish line and get out of this madhouse. I pulled myself up and grabbed her arm, taking her with me away from the clearing. Don't get stunned now. We need to get out of here before more monsters come. Right. We ran and ran. I hoped that we were at least running the direction of the finish line. After several minutes of running, we stopped to catch our breaths. There were no sounds of monsters nearby, so I dropped to the ground, adrenaline finally leaving me. A moment later, Levin's voice boomed from the sky. There is 1 hour remaining. 1 hour. We need to hurry. No matter how tired we felt when we had to press forward. Yanshu nodded in agreement and we continued this trek downwards. As there was barely an hour left, we decided to run. A few minutes later, the ground stopped sloping downwards. I think we're close. My excitement was cut short by the sudden drop of a cliff a few meters in front of us. It's not that bad. We can make it down. It was true. We could make out the ground beneath the cliff. Still, it wouldn't be an easy journey in the dark. Hello? Is someone up there? The sound of several voices caught our attention as we noticed a group of people gathered beneath the cliff. Hurry! You've made it! This is the finish line. You just have to get down the cliff. My heart thumped with joy. Did you hear that? Yes, I do. We did it. Let's hurry. Let's not celebrate yet. Even with the light of the moon, it was difficult to see the footholds of the cliff face. But given the crowd that was waiting below us, it couldn't be that bad. Are you ready? Yanshu gave a nervous nod. I took the first step down. It took a while and I was exhausted, but I made my way down the cliff. Above me, Yanshu checked each foothold twice before settling her full weight on it. There was often one willing to let go of handholds. But between the encouragement from me and the other survivors, Yanshu was also set foot on the finish line. Yanshu? Congratulations! You did it! There was a sizable group of survivors past the finish line, but I wasn't told the initial number of participants. I could only hope most of us made it out safely. Hi, Louie! Yanshu was interrupted by the toll of a bell and Levin's voice reverberated from the heavens once more. The first trial is now over. Congratulations to the players who have made it to the finish line. Before we could celebrate, a blinding white light enveloped us. I covered my face with my arms reflexively and squeezed my eyes shut. When I opened them... I found myself in the comfort of my own living room. The one I used to share with Yanshu. Although this apartment was a familiar place, it felt painfully empty now. Yanshu? Was she alright? We both made it to the finish line, but... No, wait, I took a deep breath, recategorizing the events in my head as I grounded myself. I was in my apartment. I had been sleeping, so that was a dream? It was unsettling how realistic that dream was. With a sigh, I heaved myself up to a sitting position on the couch, attempted to recall the events of my supposed dream. What? The images that flashed through my mind gave a shiver down my spine. The sounds, the darkness, the exhaustion of hiking for 9 hours. Not to mention the monsters! Inhuman claws, the snapping rows of sharp teeth. Just a dream. Just a dream. Just a dream. I tell myself those words, but it felt rather realistic for a nightmare. They thawed away the smell of the monster's breath on me. In the depths of my memory, I remembered something softer as well. Very clear division here. Since I picked that first choice, let's just go down this route. Didn't think my brain was capable of dreaming up someone as beautiful as 11. Perhaps I took too much note of Yanshu's soap operas. She looked like she walked right out of one of them. Judge of the 11th Court. Someone who presided over games, she didn't seem to enjoy much of it. Oh, nightmares never made sense. They just existed to scare people. I could not but wonder, Someone as beautiful as 11 who existed in a nightmare. Was it really just a nightmare? Perhaps she was the silver lining of that cloud. Silver. I hummed to myself as I thought about it. 11. Silver didn't suit her. She was certainly a bright and vibrant red fighting against a black cloud. And again, I knew nothing at all about her. Suppose I'm doing this intentionally to go back later and get the Mimi route proper. Oh, okay, we can think about both. About Yanshu? Chuckled softly to myself and buried my face in my hands. Must really be really desperate for me to dream about my ex. I broke up with her. I had no right to dream about her like this. Nightmare. I corrected myself like it was any consolation. She wasn't the bad guy in my dream, nor was she the bad guy in my life. Things simply just didn't work out. However, the Yanshu that appeared in my dream was different. It wasn't the Yanshu I remembered making up with. Though she was still that soft and gentle girl, I felt as if something had changed since the last time I had saw her, despite not much time passing at all. I felt a mild pang of pain in my head as I tried to think about time. In thinking of her, I couldn't help but smile, a slightly sour smile that I would dream of her. Albeit different, in the end her presence made me happy. Yeah. And while we had a very distinct feeling of weak and useless, she turned up and bludgeoned that fucking monster to death. Maybe this nightmare couldn't fully be called a nightmare. I lifted my head up with a sigh. I'm no expert on dream analysis, but there's something to be said here for, overcoming difficulties in your relationships. It's hard to uncoat sugar once it had been applied. I wouldn't be surprised if I was the bad guy of her nightmares. It was also hard to undo cruelty once it had been done to another person. I shook my head, trying to think of something else. If it was any consolation for me, at least I had Yanshu with me in the dream and met a beautiful game master, 11. My nerves wouldn't relax. Monsters lingered in the shadows. I seemed to see them in every dark corner, even behind my own closed eyelids as I blinked. Enough, I couldn't keep thinking about this. I told myself to stop, but my brain kept replaying the horrifying images each time I closed my eyes. Need a breath of fresh air. I stood and strode to the door, opening it with gusto into the void. So this is either we're going to fall back asleep and enter stage 2, or we're going to open the door and find out that we're already in stage 2. Apartment living room had no windows. Outside the front door should face out to the connecting hallway to the building, which also had no windows. At least that's how it should have been normally. To the void, to the box. Instead, what reached me was black. Thick darkness covered every part of the world outside my apartment door and began to churn as if it noticed me. My brain scrambled to make sense of this, to debate my next actions. A cold hand delicately covered mine, and pushed the door closed. I turned to look over my shoulder, only to find 11 standing directly behind me, our faces inches apart as we stared into each other's eyes. My brain fried itself as my face heated up. My heart skipped a beat. She wasn't a dream! I didn't think anyone would open their door so quickly. What's going on? I told you. You died. It wasn't a dream. All the feelings I had thinking about Yanshu and 11 washed over me again, paired with a nauseating sense of dread. I was dead. There were monsters. This is just a liminal space for recess between games. So, it's fake. Perhaps. 11 glanced around as if curious about the layout of my apartment. Why don't you lead me around? All right. This is very soon to be taking you home, ma'am. Oh dear. Despite her asking me the question, she showed a muted surprise at my response. Perhaps it hadn't been a serious request. Would you like some tea? Or do you have some other contestant to visit? Most contestants don't feel the need to leave their places of comfort after a harrowing experience. I'm pretty unique, then. I spotted the start of a smile on her lips, as though my joke brought actual amusement. Yet it disappeared so quickly, it might as well have been my own hopeful imagination. I led her out of the living room toward the kitchen. The kitchen was in the back of the apartment, past the bedrooms and the bathroom. The thought of bedrooms made me pause. Without thinking, I came to a stop at the first bedroom in the hallway. Rather than waiting for 11, who hadn't even stepped out of the living room yet, I was simply unable to move on. This had been Mimi's, Yanchu's room, when we were still dating. I had a feeling that she was just sitting within that room right now. The implications of the game came rushing back to me. The things and conversations I had ignored for the sake of time. Yanchu was also dead. How could that happen? She was alive and well when I last saw her. I didn't want to believe it. We might not have worked well together, but I didn't want her to be dead. We were in love, you know? We were dating. How could she be dead? She doesn't deserve it. You're not dating anyone anymore. Why do you care so much? Couldn't find an answer. I knew the answer, but I didn't want to face it. Thus, I changed the topic again. Why are we both here? So we died, but how did we end up in the same game? Luck, circumstances, chance. You both died, sinners. I wonder what my sin was. I didn't live in a perfect human. What had I done that was so terrible that I'd be called a sinner in the afterlife? Would have known if you compared the 8 characters. The 8 characters were nothing more than feudal superstition, cosmological astrology, centered around the concept that human fate could be determined by the date of one's birth. Fate is set in stone. Humans used to be so careful about it to plan for the future, yet they don't do it anymore. You even search for your own partners rather than consulting it carefully for everyone that it involves. It's not just selfish, it's stupid. For how much you believe in fate, you sure try to fight it. Huh. Is that so? Did I touch a nerve? Perhaps I shouldn't keep bothering her. What should I do? Again, we are going full 11, first run. Even if I was bothering her, I had promised her tea. It was hardly the polite thing to abandon that one for now. Letting the topic drop, I walked to the kitchen to prepare the tea. Eleven waited wordlessly in the living room as I did so. In a few minutes, I returned to the living room with 2 cups of tea in tow, which I placed on the coffee table. Eleven was already seated on the end of the couch. She wasn't a normal guest, not quite a friend, but somehow not an enemy either. I had a chance of regaining my life thanks to her. She didn't feel like an enemy. I don't drink a lot of tea, but I was told this is a fancy brand. Some big shot CEO gifted it to me on a business trip. Oh, wow. The CEO did. Jealous. There. It was given to everyone who attended the meeting. She didn't single me out, I promise. I wasn't worried. I chuckled at her immediate response as I sat next to her. Can you tell me why I'm a sinner? What makes you think you're not? I don't think I've done anything particularly worse than the average human. There were the occasional white lies, the thumbing of my time card, overly boisterous description of my job on a date. They were hardly sins. If those were sins, the entire human race couldn't be spared. I don't have a file on everyone that the king invites to the games of the 11th court. The king of the 11th court? 11 had mentioned the king before, but spare details each time. I don't wish to talk about the king. Well, that was blunt. Alright. I suppose no one wanted to talk about their boss during their time off. Levin picked up the teacup and took a sip. This is, pretty good. I think I'm the only one who still gets to enjoy good tea. You're the one? How old do you think I am? Not a day over 18. Even if it was sarcastic, I liked the sound of her laugh. It was delicate but strong. Purpose and individuality despite what fate might have brought for her. That would follow, considering I haven't visibly aged much since. Despite how I look, I've outlived so many old bastards who would never get to taste tea like this again. Sure are fond of that tea. Well-grown tea leaves are well-grown tea leaves. That doesn't change with the centuries. Reached over for the tin of leaves. Would you like it? No, thank you. You can't bribe a judge of the 11th court. What? I couldn't help break into laughter. Levin raised an unamused brow at me. No, I wouldn't bribe you. least not with tea leaves I get for free from a flirty CEO. Whoa, hey now. So she was flirty. I wanted to bribe you. Trust me, you wouldn't see it coming. No, I just want you to have this, if you'd like it, I mean. Keeping it in the tin will make the tea lose all of its flavor since I don't drink tea or make boba. Boba? Her face twisted in distaste. What use would tea have for women say now? No, you don't know. You don't know what bubble tea is? Bubble tea. Her expression was still dark, and for a moment I was afraid she'd storm right out of my apartment with the wrong idea. Given how she was dressed, I wasn't surprised that she hadn't caught up with modern terminology. It's a popular drink nowadays. Tea with milk, sugar, tapioca balls. We call the tapioca balls boba. She still looked skeptical. I'll take you out for some, after I win the games, and then you'll see that I'm not lying. Alright. It's a date then. Here. I held the tin of tea leaves out to her. I promised to do so. Ah. She stared at the tin so long I was afraid she wouldn't take it, but finally she took it in her hand. Thank you. She placed the tin within her sleeves. I didn't understand the physics behind those pockets. Hey. The sternness in her voice brought me back to the gravity of my situation, one where jokes about tea and tapioca pearls didn't belong. There will be 2 more trials to the game of life. Have your wits about you and be prepared. I would hate to see you lose. That's something you say to every contestant, or just me? Flirty much. She didn't respond, only disappearing once I blinked. The sound of a bell rang through the apartment in the next moment. I found myself in an endless black void again, accompanied only by the image of a wooden door a few feet away from me. Why prolong the inevitable? I opened the door and walked through. The same light as before covered my entire body, prompting me to close my eyes till I reached the second test. The ground underneath my feet seemed to change. I opened my eyes to the sight of a large western mansion. A low, confused chatter of human voices surrounded me. Glancing around, I found that I was within a small crowd of people I recognized as survivors from the previous round, strangers aside from our shared misfortune. Yanshu stood a few paces away. Her eyes met mine and we exchanged looks. I walked closer to her. The air stilled. The chatter suddenly stopped. Oh, hello. With light footsteps that could barely be heard in the newfound silence, Eleven walked up and stood before the small crowd. Welcome to the second round of your trial. I will explain the rules of this game. At that moment, a fellow survivor rushed at 11. Down with your rules! They raised their fist with the intention to beat 11. Yet 11 did not move or scream. Flicking her wrist, she slipped a scalpel out from her sleeve and swiftly threw the blade at the enraged survivor. The scalpel embedded itself in her forehead. Ugh. A trickle of blood rolled down from the wound. Then they collapsed to the ground. Her body fell apart, limbs looking as if they had been hacked apart with a saw, and began to bloat, discoloring dark and putrid. Like a murder victim, dismembered and disposed of in a river. I looked away. If I must, I will remind you that I am the judge of your trial. Follow the etiquette of the court, lest you be thrown out from the game of life. Levin gestured to the air. Yeah? A group of maids, whose features I could not see, walked up to us. They squatted down by the corpse and began to pick it up, tearing apart any remaining large pieces to better carry. Without speaking, all but one maid returned to the mansion, taking all traces of the dead body with them. Now then, the rules. You'll be guests at this mansion for the next 3 days and 2 nights, where you'll be participating in the second round of your trials. In the period of the test, you must find the trial key hidden within the mansion grounds. There will be a feast for the King of the 11th Court the evening of the 3rd night, which marks the deadline for this game. Her voice seemed to twist as she mentioned the king. If any one of you is able to find the key, then all remaining guests will be able to consider to have won this round. Similarly, if none of you is able to find the key, then everyone will be considered to have lost and be served as a meal at the feast. Collective punishment, collective victory. Oh, and you will know that you have found the key when you see it. Good luck. 11 made a little clap of encouragement. The servant will escort you inside. Gesturing to the remaining maid, Levin turned and walked into the mansion. The maid bowed.
Welcome, guest. Please follow me.
Her voice had held a natural rasp that made my gut churn. A fitting choice of voice, then. The maid led the group inside the mansion, pointing out the doors to the dining room where they would have meals before leading us to a hallway with many doors. She walked us down the hallway, pointing each person to one door, stating that those were their assigned rooms. My room and Yanshu's room were 4 doors away from each other.
Curfew is after dark. Please stay inside your rooms after curfew. There will be all.
The maid bowed and walked away. Our survivor group idled in the hallway, waiting for someone to make the first move. Finally, a woman spoke up. Hey, let's have everyone search their rooms, then meet up out here in the hallway again to make a plan. You really think they put the key in a bedroom? Better safe than sorry. A few murmurs, complaints, agreements sounded out. Sure, that sounds fine with me. Yanshu nodded. Yanshu. Thus, after the group came to a consensus, I went into my assigned room to check for the key. Fitting with the look at the mansion, the room was a Western-style room. I sifted through the furniture and looked under the bed, mattress, pillows, and so on. However, I found no key. Before long, I returned to the hallway where around half the group had already regrouped. A minute later, Yanju came out of her room and shuffled to my side. The rest of the group returned with time. Anyways, you said something about a plan. Got anything, lady? That's what we're here to discuss. With less cohesion than soapy water, the group started grumbling and debating on what to do. Noisy. They were really noisy. Yansu fidgeted, eyes darting to the floor to avoid the attention of any of the other survivors. He seemed a little pale. I cleared my throat, prompting a few survivors to look my way. Taking advantage of the short dip in noise, I raised my voice. I believe it's all best if we split up and investigate separately to cover more ground. We could regroup over meals in the dining room to discuss our findings. That would work with me. Some more noise. Whatever. See when those creepy maids go for mealtime then. At long last, the group dispersed, walking off in different directions to search for the key. I let out a sigh. I didn't know I'd been herding in. I swept my bangs out of my face and turned to Yanshu, who hadn't left the other survivors. Let's go. We walked together out of the hallway with the guest rooms. Making a random turn, we looked around for any hints of the special key that Eleven mentioned. Well, the key wasn't as kind to be sitting on the ground in the middle of the hallway. We soon happened upon a large plaque on the wall. Classical script carved into bronze. It's Beatrice. I narrowed my eyes to decipher the riddle. Reading the text around, Yanshu snapped a picture of the plaque with her phone that she had brought out to document the mansion. Clicky clicky. He, the marshal of the central altar. Sleeps at the hour of the dragon and snake, together with the sacrifice's key. Marshal of the central altar. Cursing the father blessed by the gods. Even spoken aloud, it sounded like gibberish. Looks like a hint for where the key is located, but what does it mean? Dragon and snake. Curse. It's kind of ominous. I don't know. Maybe it's referring to a place in the mansion we haven't been yet. I nodded. Then again, it could be a red herring. If it isn't, then it would be the sacrifices. Sacrifices to be eaten, huh? It's kind of unpleasant that whoever wrote this decided already that we're gonna lose. It makes me want to prove them wrong even more. Took a picture, right? You think about this riddle more and review than text from your phone later, then we had barely just started investigating this mansion. What'll be your best bet? With the size of the mansion and the low survivor count for the first round, 3 days wouldn't be enough to dig through every nook and cranny. Oh boy. Well, we are going full 11. I'm gonna find 11. Since she's the judge, she might let some hints slip if I ask her. Okay, stay safe. I will, thank you. Giving Anshiro a wave, I parted from her and began my search for 11. Going off my gut feeling, I strolled in the southeast direction. Unfortunately, I saw nothing of note along the hallways as that I passed through. Passing a hall lined with windows facing outwards, I looked outside and saw a garden with a pond, some flowers resembling lotuses on the water surface. Squinting, I noticed some figures, other players, already searching through the garden. After a while, I heard the sound of multiple footsteps. I approached the noise. Then I saw her. There she was, standing out with her long black hair and bright red dress. 11 stood amongst a bunch of maid servants who were moving large decorations and furniture, directing their actions. I endeavored to ignore the unnerving servants while walking toward 11. You. If I could say anything, she noticed me. Hello? She gestured for the servants to continue what they were doing, making them stop looking our way. I'm here to request your help. What for? I contemplated whether she would prefer me to beat around the bush or get straight to the point. I decided on the latter. Finding the key, passing this game. She stared at me in silence, as if waiting for me to say that I was joking. I wasn't. How rare. Humans don't often come to me for help during the game of life. Why do you think that I would assist you? I don't believe you mentioned any rules against asking the judge for help. Surely a small hint would be allowed. It goes unsaid for most that you should not ask the judge. But fair enough. I will give you one small hint. I perked up, preparing myself to commit the information to memory. The key is nearby. She did not elaborate. Looking around, I wondered what being nearby entailed. While a helpful clue, it left me with a still sizable range to cover with no clear idea of what I was looking for. What exactly is the key? For example, a classical key, a non-key-shaped object, magnetic strip card? You will know that you have found it when you see it. Levin repeated the same information as when she initially explained the rules. Perhaps I made a troubled expression. I am afraid that I am, in fact, not allowed to help you pass any round in the game of life. However, know that I am not your enemy. Then will you be my ally? Do you think I can be? I did. However, my instincts told me that she would not be able to accept my feelings, whether for the impartiality of a judge or the internal affairs of the 11th Court. I was certainly familiar with the unpleasant workplace politics. Thus, I sent her a quick wink instead. Oh, you charm her. I like to think the best of pretty girls. Yeah! Levin coughed, caught off guard. You seem like a poor judge of character. Although if I were to say that, then I may also be a poor judge of character. Complicated expression flitted across her face. My lips are loose today, so allow me to give you a warning. What's your etiquette around the king of the 11th Court? If you're able to find the key and attend the feast as a guest, then you must mind your manners. She tilted her head toward the maids. The servants belong to the king, and they will be watching over this trial just like the ghosts from the previous round. Clang! A clattering sound, that of a maid dropping one end of a large covered frame, broke the mood of our conversation. That is all I can say for now. I nodded. Turning a single nod, she walked toward the offending servant and instructed the servants on what they were supposed to do. maids shuffled along, regaining a sense of rhythm, and Lemon followed after them, shooing them forward. Called out after her, "Thank you for the hint and the warning." Without turning back, she responded to me, "You're welcome." Okay, you know what? I do like this. I do like this path. And it's not completely dismissive to Yunshu outside of that first choice. For long, both she and the maid disappeared from my line of sight. Investigation continued for a while longer, but to no avail, before everyone was called for dinner by the voice of a maid from an invisible intercom.
Time for dinner, yeah.
I sat next to Yunshu at the big dining table. Looking around the table, I noticed an empty seat. The young man from before never showed up for dinner. No one had succeeded in finding the key yet. The servants served dinner, and a few words were exchanged between us survivors. After eating, we all headed back to our rooms for the rest of the evening. Freshened up in the attached bathroom of my assigned room and hopped into bed after turning off the lights, ready to rest after a long day. Knock, knock. Someone was at the door. What could go wrong? Letting out a yawn, I slipped out of bed. Didn't know who was looking for me at this time of night, but I walked toward the door nonetheless. There was no people to check the identity of the other party. Without thinking, I opened the door. Click. A maid stood behind me. Eh? Oh, hi! You look friendly. No, it was a monster that stood before me. Its many, many eyes upon a face, which no longer hid its ghastly identity, stared at me. The monster rushed at me before I could react, piercing my throat and chest with its hands, and tore.
Feel the madness, yeah.
My flesh ripped. I wanted to scream. Instead, out of my destroyed throat came a choking, scraping noise, along with gurgling and bubbling red blood. My field of view changed. My head hit the ground with a bounce. It hurt. It hurt. It hurt. It hurt. I didn't even know what hurt anymore, but surely I should have already died. So I didn't know why it hurt so much. The monster began to break my body into pieces. Chomp, 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 chomp. My senses that were covered in red, melting away into the darkness, I heard a set of terribly soft footsteps that made the monster pause for just a moment. The meat is to be saved for the feast. Do not eat. Some other girl's voice sounded disappointed, but I could not ask why. She tapped my forehead with a small, thin blade. I didn't know how long had passed, or if that had been nothing more than a terrible nightmare. The haze over my consciousness, I opened my eyes. Yet I did not have eyelids. My vision bobbed up and down with a layer of liquid, obtrusively existing in the lower half, which I could ignore like a part of my peripheral vision. This me was an eyeball. My flesh was within a pot of soup, my bones used for broth. This eyeball floated within this bowl of soup that was brought on the head of a large table. Observing my surroundings, I found that this must have been a feast, perhaps the feast that Eleven mentioned. I saw not a single human seated at the side seats, nor not a single one of the survivors. Every guest I saw appeared to be a ghost, a monster, something not quite human, except for those who were at the head of the table. A tall, red-haired woman sat as the head, with Yunshu to her side. A tall woman must have been someone important, sitting at the head of the table. The king. This must have been the king. What if Yunshu had been seated beside the king? I could no longer speak. Instead, I could only silently gaze toward her from within the soup. Dark bags under her eyes reddened as if she had been crying. She looked exhausted and utterly devoid of spirit. This is your lover's tongue. The king picked up a piece of flesh from the bowl of soup using a pair of chopsticks, holding it up toward Yunshu, who did not correct her. Why don't you have it? You certainly want to kiss, to devour her tongue. I'm sure that it would taste marvelous. The king fed my tongue to Yunshu. Oh God! As tears streamed down Yanshu's cheeks, I realized that Yanshu was no longer human, but rather a ghost. Crunch, crunch. Yanshu devoured me. Yet if it was like this, then I wouldn't be able to accompany her in any way. I ceased to be. Oh boy, well that was... bad, Ed. That was cold. Alright, hell yeah. Let's not do that. I ignored the feeling. I ignored the knocking, feeling that whatever the odd other person had to say could wait for tomorrow morning. If it was really that important, they could just yell through the door. Knock, knock, knock. Knock, knock, knock. Despite all the knocking, whoever stood at the other side of the door never once spoke. Knock, knock, knock. Something was wrong. Feeling unease settle in my gut, I sat up in bed and gazed at the door until the knocking finally stopped. Click! I heard the muffled sound of the survivor next door opening their door. Then the woman screamed, "Oh!" and stopped screaming with a squelch, which I shouldn't have been able to hear through the wall. The sound of crunching, crackling, splattering, death and destruction of the no longer surviving survivor all passed through the wall. I wanted to heave. I unconsciously lifted my hands to cover my ears, but found myself to force myself to put them down. Couldn't block any of my senses when I could be in danger. Instead, I simply continued watching the door, digging my fingers into my now clammy palms. Eventually, the sound stopped. I held my breath. Footsteps disappeared out of the hallway, leaving a final and lasting silence. Cautiously slipping off the bed, I turned on the lights in my room. I looked around the room. To my relief, there was nothing else in here with me. Oh! Suddenly 11 appeared by my side. Yeah! Dodging away from her on instinct, I tripped backwards into the bed and slammed my elbow on the frame as I fell. I cradled my throbbing arm and blinked away a few tears. My heart seemed about to beat out of my chest. In the meanwhile, 11 made herself comfortable and sat on the edge of the bed, gazing down at me on the floor. Hi. A much more preferable jump scare than maid jump scare. What were the judge of these tests here for? What? You can find me, but I can't find you. At that, I let out a sigh of relief. My heart rate slowly returned to normal, and a feeling of exhaustion washed over my shoulders. I stood up and sat down on the bed next to her, incredibly tempted to flop on my back right now. I restrained myself to keep a tiny bit of dignity. I'm just surprised. Welcome to my humble temporary abode. Thank you for the welcome. I admit I'm rather pleased to see that you are still surviving. Oh, so am I. You are the promising one of this batch. In what way? Secret. Oh, she danced around the answer with a pretty smile. Perhaps you'll learn my reasoning with your time. For now, accompany me for a little nighttime chat, won't you? My reasoning is this. You're cute and you're flirting with me. It is a rarity for me being around so many other random humans all this time. No one's ever taken such an interest in me, I imagine. I don't have any topics in particular, so you'll have to entertain me. Although, as you may have seen, the servants here are rather dull. Would you like to become my servant? You would get out of the game of life without losing nor winning, neither being eaten nor gaining reincarnation or life. But I would say that I do treat my lessers quite well. I, on the other hand, would gain a slightly more capable, if not at least interesting aid. I shook my head. No, thank you. Eleven didn't appear upset by my refusal, but tilted her head, prompting me to elaborate. I want to go back to life, so I can't give up on the game of life just yet. Besides, I'm taking you on a boba date. I have no intention of being anyone's servant. I'd rather be your equal. Equals. What a naive concept. I don't believe that two people can ever be equals. Not in life, not in this court. For one, I'm a judge, and you are a player. Hyler just smirking like, oh yeah, I am a player. But are you talking to me as a judge, or just as a friend looking to chat a little right now? How audacious of you to call me a friend. You don't seem mad, though. Hierarchy has been written into the laws governing society since the very start. For example, a woman was born to obey her father, and then her husband. You should bear him a son to be his heir, who will hopefully show her filial piety, but ultimately controls her fate, since should he accept the destruction of his reputation. Ultimately controls her fate. Filial piety. The, generationally doing right by your parents, taking care of them, looking after them when they grow old. them respect as I grow old. Ultimately controls her fate. He can say no, piss off, but said refusal would destroy his reputation in his community. And the like. I believe that's unpacking that sentence. If a woman is a concubine, then she should also obey the main wife. It just happens that many concubines have greedy hearts that covet the position of main wife. Whether a common woman or the noblest imperial concubine, they are all bound by these rules. An unexpected tone of resignation leaked through from her voice. I couldn't quite pinpoint what era she was speaking of. But the thing is, that's wrong, isn't it? Something in her expressions shifted. Don't know if the phrase women hold up half the sky and made its way down here. However, modern society is at least a lot better than back then in acknowledging and working toward gender equality. At the very least, the taking of concubines has been outlawed in China for over half a century. It seems that many of you players still practice favoring boys over girls. The society is wrong too. But are we not the ones who are wrong? Or can we really say that everyone else is wrong? In this case, I do think that the world is wrong. People who are cruel to their daughters for the sake of their sons are really just scumbags. Yes. The obsession with passing down their bloodline through the male offspring doesn't even match up with the science. Go on. Both parents' genes contribute to the child's genes, and humans are yet to figure out asexual reproduction. There's even a major section of DNA called the mitochondrial DNA that's predominantly passed down by the mother.
Powerhouse of the Sill. Powerhouse of the Sill, baby.
Evan looked at me like I'd grown at her head. I see. At the very least, I think it's wrong to condemn a person's entire life to being a puppet for people who treat her as a lesser. Even if we're not friends. Wink, wink. I would like to see this world you envision. As for being friends, people really are dirty, but I find you rather pleasant, albeit rather hard to understand at times. That is why I will give you another warning. Humans are those who desire power over others, regardless of the logic or science behind their actions. Cruelty will only be judged by the victor. Those that mimic humans will behave in the same way. The sinners taking part in this game of life are indeed sinners. Take that into consideration and do not trust them. Oh, remember not to open the door at night. You did well earlier tonight. Levin stood up from the bed. Good night. Good night? She smiled at me. My heart skipped a beat. Stepping into a shadow, Levin disappeared from my sight. I turned off the lights and went to bed. Closing my eyes, I fell into a dreamless sleep. Daylight came in an instant. Yeah! Morning was spent searching for the key without results. Noon came and passed. Yanshu and I had scattered out the mansion in places we had yet to touch. As I ran my hand along a wall, hoping to feel the key under the wallpaper, something shifted beneath my feet and palm. Oh no! Secret passage! The ground rotated, opening up the wall and throwing me to the other side before promptly sealing the wall shut again. The momentum of the trapdoor threw me off balance and I fell to the ground. Ah! Hi, Lou! Ow! I pushed myself back to my feet, patting off my hands. Are you alright? I heard Yanshu push at the wall to no avail. He seemed to be smacking it and even kicked at it, the thuds carrying through better than her voice. I'm alright! I called to her across the wall. Looking around, this hallway didn't seem to be directly connected to the hallway I had just left by accident. I tried pushing the wall from my side, but I couldn't get the trapdoor to open up again either. Doesn't look like I can get back to you easily. Let's split up for now so we don't waste any time. But it's only a day and a half left to find the key. Daylight still trickled in from the nearby windows. However, given the little progress made by the shrinking group of survivors, we couldn't waste precious time. See you at dinner? Okay, see you at dinner. Thus, I turned away from the trapdoor wall and began exploring the new section I found myself in. Hearing a quiet crackling sound, I proceeded closer and found a fireplace. Embedded discreetly in the wall, the flames danced and flickered. Radiating red warmth, they seemed to reach out toward me, causing me to stumble back. An image of fire flashed in the back of my head. Oh. Died in fire? A sudden sharp pain spiked through my skull while I grasped at my head with a groan. I had lost my sense of equilibrium, backing into a wall so that I could lean against it. I grit my teeth. Flames were in my eyes. I choked, feeling a strange rawness in my throat. Using the wall as support, I slowly made my way away from that area. Although my breathing cleared, a dull headache and unsteadiness persisted. So focused on my discomfort, I didn't notice the footsteps approaching. That was when the air seemed to freeze. Oh. Judging by that bad ending, you are the Red King. An unfamiliar monster, a tall woman with red hair and her entourage of followers passed by me. We seldom screamed to get away from her. Pretty lightheaded from the episode before, I felt I couldn't breathe under her suffocating aura. Read her eyes, a mismatched red and orange. My consciousness cut out. He, the marshal of the central altar, sleeps at the hour of the dragon and the snake, together with the sacrifice's key, cursing the father blessed by the gods. The deadline looming over our heads, one had to ask, what was the meaning of the dragon and the snake? Hour of the dragon and the snake? Judging by the context, it feels too easy because we were going off of the, Hour of the Ox was between 1 and 3. Dragon and Snake is 8 and 10 a.m., so that's in theory possible, but I don't know how much time fits in terms of a location. I feel like it's more location. See that animals used to be used to refer to the directions of the compass. Ancient people certainly used animals for all sorts of things. A voice in my head spoke. The direction of the dragon and the direction of the snake were both located in the southeast. If that was the case, then we had to focus on the southeast. Yet we had already searched there plenty, so it seemed hard to imagine whatever else we had failed to search. My thoughts ended. Suddenly I was snapped back to reality by someone shaking my shoulder and that someone's familiar voice. Ailu! Black spots faded away from my vision. I stumbled right into the person who was shaking me, nearly knocking us both down before I regained my bearings. Yanjia? Last thing I remembered, I had lost consciousness, apparently standing after seeing a strange woman. I didn't know how much time had passed since. The sun had set. More than that, the sky was pitch black. Unease ran through my chest. What time is it? Just about curfew. You missed dinner, and you weren't in your room, so I came out to find you. I was scared. Why'd you miss dinner? Fast footsteps and a sharp scraping noise cut off my words. Oh yeah! At the end of the hall, I spotted a pair of maids. No, nothing about them looked human. I spotted a pair of monsters who had certainly spotted us with their many eyes. We have to run. Yanchu and I began to run the opposite direction of the monsters, who simply began to sprint after us.
Get back here, you sinners!
We quickly reached a fork, causing me to hesitate for a moment. I didn't know where this was. I didn't know the best way to go. I didn't know if I'd run into a dead end. We didn't have time to hesitate. Yanchu grabbed my hand. This way! The sound of the monsters sounded right next to my ears. Tugging, she pulled me along to run. We ran, making turns here and there until I was dizzy. We ran. Yet for every meter we ran, the monsters seemed to move too. their movements scraping along the floor, their eyes so terribly hungry as they pierced our backs, the monsters were gaining on us. Still holding Yanshu's hand, I felt her begin to lag and pant. I knew where we were now. Seeing a monster reach out to grab Yanshu, I yanked her out of the wall. I practically dragged her to run as I chucked a random object in the hall straight into the monster's face. We had to go. We had to run. We were so close to safety. My assigned room was only a few meters away. The monsters were even closer. Through sheer force of will, I pushed Yanshu through the door and slid into the room. Slam! The moment my entire body was inside the room, I slammed the door shut, smashing against the fingers of one of the monsters that had reached to grab us.
That's my hand.
Ignoring the wriggling digits that turned to black ooze, I locked the door. The ooze dripped to the floor and evaporated. Knock, 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 knock. Neither Yanshu nor I were foolish enough to open the door. I watched the door and backed away further into the room, picking up any solid object that I could use to bash the monsters with should they make their way into the room. My heart was about to beat out of my chest. I glanced at Yanshu. Looks like we'll have to share a bed tonight. As long as they can't open locked doors. Knock, 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 knock. Not once did the monsters seem to touch the handle or try to open the door. I wondered if the monsters had to follow the rules of the game as well. Finally, the knocking stopped. And once I heard the monsters leave, did I return the makeshift weapon I picked up back to its original position. Are they gone? I think so. I collapsed like a slug face first into the bed, rolling around on my back to more easily breathe. My limbs felt like jelly. Seeing Yanshu sit down on the bed next to me, I pushed myself up to a sitting position to accompany her. Thanks. For saving me. She shook her head. I don't know what happened. I saw this ominous woman, and then I just blacked out. She wasn't one of the survivors or one of the servants. So, that's what happened? I was really worried. If you hadn't come to find me, then I think I would have been a goner. I hate that. No one at dinner found the key today either, so we're here for another night. No luck on my end. Without a sigh. Sitting in subdued silence, Yanshu retrieved her phone from her pocket. I have some pictures of the mansion that I want to review. I'll look too. I scooted closer to her on the bed, my fingers brushing against her hand by accident. With the dozens, even hundreds of photos that Yanshu took of various places across the mansion grounds, not one hint of the key could be found. Let's go back to the riddle we saw on the first day. Yanshu opened the photo of the plaque. He, the marshal of the central altar, sleeps at the hour of the dragon and the snake, together with the sacrifice's key, cursing the father blessed by the gods. Who is the marshal of the central altar supposed to be? Central... I want to say it's referring to Neza. Because, if only because answering central altar in this instance just seems odd. And my brain is rotted by the internet, but I'm pretty sure that Neza in actual mythology is a protection deity, so that seems like Neza is the right answer. The title tugged at a memory buried deep within my head. A name danced upon the tip of my tongue, something I remembered from when I was younger. I seemed to have watched a show as a child with a character with that title. Neza. Is Neza the marshal of the central altar? Huh. Neza is the marshal of the central altar. It's his Taoist name. Another one of his titles is Third Lotus Prince, because he was reborn from lotus roots. Maybe? Although adaptations of the Journey to the West far outnumbered those focused on Neza, I had still watched a few cartoons and dramas focusing on Neza when I was younger. He's a mythological figure, a mischievous boy born out of a ball of flesh after a gestation period of over 3 years. Probably out of flesh balls as a full-grown boy rather than an infant after the ball was cut open by his father, the boy proceeded to kill a dragon god at some point. It's a hell of a life. Amidst various shenanigans, which may have had liberties taken with them for the sake of television, Nissa died and was brought back to life via a lotus fruit by his Taoist master. After conflict with his father, Nissa ended up being trapped in a golden pagoda given to his father by the gods to tame Nissa, so the adaptation I was familiar with went. I must say I really do appreciate the just explaining the mythology as it becomes relevant here. I do appreciate the bits of explanation thrown in here. It's quite informative. I'm glad for that. The boy deity also appeared in Journey to the West and its various adaptations with a slightly different backstory. With Nissa as the marshal of the central altar, as well as a character with enmity against his father, I felt he must have been relevant to this riddle describing our key. I think we're onto something. The problem was that neither Yanju nor I could figure out the last piece of the puzzle to connect us to the answer. After mulling over the riddle for a while longer, the two of us tucked in for bed. Is there a pagoda? Somewhere in the southeast area of the mansion? Night passed. Morning came and passed as well, uneventfully, with no key in sight for any of the survivor group. Any survivors still left, including Yanshu and I, gathered in the dining room during lunch, feeling the pressure of the now looming deadline. Less than half a day remained. No one knew where the key could be. Although I had missed dinner the previous night, I could clearly see that the survivor count had decreased between yesterday noon and this morning to now. According to the others, we had dug through just about this whole mansion. They had explored the cellar, the attic, even the servants' quarters where the unlucky survivor had nearly got himself eaten alive. We saw a riddle while exploring, and it might be a clue to where the key is located. I think I remember seeing something like that too. What was it, Martial Dragon? I exchanged looks with Yanshu. Yanshu took her phone out from her pocket, drawing suspicious looks with the other survivors, and opened up the photo of the plaque to show the others. He, the marshal of the central altar, sleeps at the hour of the dragon and snake, together with the sacrifice's key, cursing the father blessed by the gods. Does anybody have any idea what this riddle could mean? The survivors murmured amongst themselves. A few piped up with ideas and interpretations, but no one thought of anything new or clearly actionable. It seemed the riddle was still unsolved. As we were about to move on to another topic or possibly disperse, one of the younger survivors spoke up, crossing her arms in annoyance. Why do you have your cell phone? I also used my phone all the time when I was alive, but I don't have my phone with me in the afterlife. And some gloomy-looking freak has hers? Wow. Are we sure she's not in cahoots with the game masters? What are you trying to say? Narrowing my eyes, I protectively moved to block the aggressive survivor from Yanshu. The eyes of the group grew unfriendly as they whispered amongst themselves. Calm down. Maybe she just got lucky and hit it well, so she got to keep her phone. Since we're here, why don't we ask the girl to try calling civilization to get us all out of this hellhole? The group agreed. I gripped my fist in irritation, but looked toward Yanshu to see how she felt about it. Clearly we had no signal in the first round. We didn't seem to have any last night either. Can we try that again? She nodded. Extending her hand to show her phone, she called 110. There was no signal, and the call failed to go through. Give that to me. Taking advantage of Yanshu's extended hand, the teenager tried to yank it out of her hand. The others began to push toward the two of us as well. Back off! Yanshu backed away, pulling her phone closer to herself. Oh, whoa. Wow. Did that creepy judge say that we're all dead? How did you randos die, huh? Bet you died in a dirty, stinky ditch somewhere that no one cares about you. Perhaps you're doing what those young people these days call projecting. Huh? Just look at your balding head makes me smell the residual stink. Henry, calm down and get back to... What, you want to share with the class why you died? The players had already began fighting amongst themselves, arguing about what this teenager was talking about. Despite not knowing how I died, I had the suspicion that most of the other survivors knew how they died. You shouldn't ask people that. Maybe I should. That game master judge girl said that we're all sinners here. She must have been some real messed up people who died in real messed up ways to get here. What'd you do to get pulled in this sinner game? You'd be a total creep. Hot meat kettle. Bickering, pushing, the survivor group devolved into chaos. Yanshu tugged my jacket silently, looking like she wanted to leave the dining room as soon as possible. I felt tempted to go as well. However, before he could leave, teenage survivor turned the group's attention back toward us. Really, what is up with Phone Girl? You're right, why does she have a phone? Hey, what the fuck? Taking advantage of his size, the middle-aged man, who I had thought initially reasonable, plucked Yanshu's phone right out of her hands. Yanshu reached for it, only to be blocked by other survivors. Give that back. It doesn't belong to you. If she's innocent, we can make better use of this phone. How do you unlock this thing? Seriously, give it back. Give it to me. I know how to use it better than an old man like you. Noisy. This place is really noisy. Plate fell to the ground. More accurately, Yanshu threw a plate to the ground. The room fell silent in surprise. Then she opened her mouth to speak, loudly and clearly. Give my phone back to me. Walking up to the middle-aged man through the crowd that appeared. Surprised to see Yanshu speak at all, Yanshu took her phone back. She wiped it off with a napkin and held it close to her chest. Sending a glare toward the other survivors, she walked away, exiting the dining room. Rather annoyed myself, I copied Yanshu's glare and made to leave. You should consider resuming the key search before wasting any more time bullying people. Oh yes, I can make much better use of it. What the fuck does that mean? Well, God. Jeez. I found Yanshu in the hallway, not too far away. Oh, you're right. Yanshu. Yansu? Yansu? My memory is terrible on these matters. I know I'm already an hour and a half into things, so if it's been like a thought creeping in the back of my head. Last time that it's actually Yansu and not Yanshu. If this is so, I am so sorry. I can't stand people. Yeah, mood! Understandable. Yansu let out a deep sigh and stared down at her feet. After a while of silence, I felt her tug at my jacket sleeve. Let's try to find the key. Yeah. For us, not those assholes. We continued our search. Time passed. Out of the blue, the air changed and Levin's voice sounded out from the sky, reminding me of the first round mountain. The feast for the king of the 11th court will commence in approximately 1 hour. We're almost out of time. 1 hour. Just 1 hour left. We didn't have any time left to wander around and hope for the best. We had to figure out where exactly the key was hidden. He, the marshal of the central altar, sleeps at the hour of the dragon and snake, together with the sacrifice's key, cursing the father blessed by the gods. My brain clicked. Ah. That. Based on the riddle, the key should be somewhere in the southeast, the one place that we haven't checked yet. Inside that pond with the lotus root. The dragon and the snake refer to the directions, the southeast. The marshal of the central altar is Neza. Lotus flowers. Turned to look at to the southeast in unison. Exchanging looks, we nodded and started running down the halls toward the garden in that direction. We reached the garden and stepped right in front of the pond. Beside the greenery and the flowers, it seemed unassuming with the pretty white-pink lotus flowers floating upon its surface. Likely no one had thought to search within it, and no nets or tools in sight to use. Yansu looked left and right, trying to find something to poke into the pond with, but we didn't have the time for that. I'm pretty good at swimming. What? Without thinking further, I dove into the pond with a splash. The water soaking into my clothes hindered my movement, but I forced myself downward, opening my eyes. The pond wasn't so deep that light couldn't reach the bottom. Bubbles escaping as I conserved my oxygen, I quickly spotted something that reflected water-filtered sunlight. Sitting in the silt at the bottom pond floor was a golden pagoda figurine. Ah! I swam toward the pagoda and lifted it from the ground. From it dropped an object that I grabbed before it touched the pond bottom. As Levin stated, the moment I saw the key, I knew that we had found it. More bubbles escaped from my nose. Muffled celebratory jingle reached my ears from above the water surface. I had to go up, otherwise I'd run out of air before I had a chance to win this round. Uh-oh. Gripping the key in my hand, I pushed myself off the pod and floor and began to swim upwards. The light above the water grew brighter. I was almost there. That was when something yanked on my leg and began to pull me down. And by shock, air escaped from my mouth. I struggled to swim upward, just my hand splashing above the pond surface. Then I felt myself being pulled down again. I was out of air. I couldn't accept this, but the thing overpowered me. I was down for just a moment, seeing a rotting creature that resembled a maze dragging me down. A water ghost. Then my hand toward the surface, which was growing further away, even as I kicked at the monster and tried to swim. No, a thin hand grabbed mine. She pulled. Desperately for my sake, Yansu pulled away. Pulled against the force of the ghost, dragging me down and pulled me above the water. I gasped for air. I'm really enjoying the 11 side of things, but I'm really looking forward to also playing Mimi's route too. Because it feels like a lot of what we've been seeing is that something about our relationship fell apart, but Yansu is actually far stronger than she knew, than we knew. Guess for air. Hi, Lou! Crack! Using the ground as leverage, I kicked the ghost away and lifted the rest of me out of the water with Yansu's help. The monster poked its head above the water for a quick second before diving back down, waiting for its next victim. Splash! Finally having a chance to catch my breath, I sat on the ground for a few moments and breathed air. My clothes were wet with water, weighing me down and leaving a puddle on the ground. I gestured for Yansu to hold out her hand. As she did, I dropped the key into her open palm. You found it! You found it! Yeah. As I forced myself back up to my feet, an announcement came from the sky. Congratulations, the key has been found. All players should make their way to the banquet hall for the feast. We made it. Maid, wearing its human facade, approached us and bowed. In its hands, it held a tab, which it passed to me to use to dry off.
Please follow me to the banquet hall.
Just like that, we reached the banquet hall. The moment we entered, the key disappeared from Yansu's hand. It seemed that the key's role was finished, once again reminding me that we were in the afterlife. There she is. Ma'am, hello there. The banquet hall was a long table. At its head sat the tall, red-haired woman I saw the day before, her gaze sending a chill down my spine. The woman spoke. Congratulations. You have made it to the feast of the third night and passed the second round of my game of life. I am the king of the 11th court. First, sit. I spotted 11 sitting beside the king. The seat beside 11 was on empty. All the other survivors sat themselves. A number of seats further away for the king had been left unoccupied in sets of 2 or 3. I contemplated where I should sit. Well, obviously, since we're going for our girl first. I'll see you later. Giving Yansu a pat on the shoulder as a see you later, I walked up to the head of the long table and took a seat next to 11, who shot me a confused, dirty look. Not in front of the boss! King seemed to laugh. Her mismatched eyes landed on me and narrowed, piercing through to my soul. I averted my eyes from the king. Now then, all who have worth have but one round left. Then you will win the right to be judged and perhaps even rewarded. I am just a just and righteous king, so you may also treat this as an intermediate prize. Start the feast. The king clapped her hands once. Servants placed a myriad of dishes on the table. It appeared the feast would be self-serve. Uh-oh. Human flesh. Looked at a dish of meat, which, while glistening with delicious-looking sauces, appeared quite odd. Didn't resemble pork or chicken. As we know, those who fail become the feast. As the other survivors dug into the food, I reached out toward the odd meat dish, but paused to glance toward 11, who had not touched any of the meat. That is human meat. I quickly retracted my hand. I am no longer hungry. 11 reached out to another dish to take a pastry onto her plate and casually bit into it. Eat pastries instead. I glanced at the pastries warily, not knowing what unnatural filling might have been hiding within the golden, flaky exterior. I'm rather partial to the mung bean pastries. Levin gestured to the plate she just took from. I couldn't say that I trusted her, but I also wouldn't say that I distrusted her. Unless I reached out to take one of the supposed mung bean pastries as well. Holding it in my hands, I nibbled on it. My first tiny bite didn't hit any filling, but the flaky exterior was mildly sweet and well made already. Feeling courageous, I took a bigger bite. That's good. Like Levin said, it was a mung bean pastry. Not too sweet, but not at all bland. I savored the taste as I chewed. I wondered how long had passed since the last time I was able to slowly enjoy a snack. Yes, it is. So we know that Hailu's an adult. A working adult. And as a working adult as well. Why is that such a relatable feeling? The sweet pastry healed my heart. What are the others? She pointed to the left. Sesame filling. She pointed to the right. Red bean filling. Sweets sure are nice. They are. What are those? It pointed to a dish that she hadn't covered. Those are mooncakes. Ooh. Taking a closer look, I realized that the mooncakes look like Shanghai-style mooncakes. The Mid-Autumn Festival is happening soon, huh? I prefer the Guangdong-style ones. Specifically, has to be lotus paste filling with 2 yolks. I like red bean normally, but if we're talking about mooncakes, it has to be lotus paste filling. I'm not a fan of that sort of yolk, admittedly. Can't be friends anymore. The yolk's my favorite salty thing. That's alright. When were we ever friends? Just gave me critical damage. Yes, now I know that you know how to enjoy the food. Evan placed some vegetables onto her plate and proceeded to nibble on the leafy greens. Following her, I also filled my plate with a few items. Non-meat. Are you vegetarian? No, I'm just not a humanitarian. No. I see. Maybe I've had too much meat these days, or maybe I'm simply getting old. Liking sweets, being unable to stand too much meat and salt. She let out a sigh. Tried to imagine her as an old matriarch of a television drama, holding those Buddhist beads and wearing simple clothing as her theoretical grandson succeeded the family title. For some reason, that theoretical grandson looked older than her in my mind's eye. You don't know how old I am. Well, yeah. I'm sure it works a little differently in the afterlife. You're pretty young as far as I'm concerned. Go on, fetus. You seem rather friendly with my woman. Hello, ma'am. King interrupted our conversation, turning the air icy cold. Oh dear. I'm sorry, ma'am. Please forgive me. As a reward, I will have a bit of something special served to you. But the king gestured to a servant who walked up and placed a piece of special meat on my plate. I looked at the meat, then at the king. Eat it. Picking up a utensil, I hesitated. The meat seemed to writhe, leaking, black and red. It called to me that it was delicious, yet my heart screamed at me not to touch it. The king did not look away from me. I had no choice but to eat it. Before I could pick up the meat, Eleven snatched it off my plate and placed it into her mouth. Oh! Huh? Crunch. She chewed and made a face. Crunch, crunch. Yet she did not spit it out, and instead swallowed, wiping her mouth once she was done. My, what brought this on? This meat was my lord's favor. How could I let a mere human have it? You should blame me for being a jealous woman. Ha ha ha! What a thing for you to say, but you've certainly satisfied me for now. I'll let you play with your little friend for a while longer. We have eternity to spend together after all. Yes. That we do. Ominous! Concerning! Terrifying, even. Oh, yeah. Although after that exchange, the king held to her word and did not interrupt us again. The mood had chilled. The feast continued for a while longer. Then a low bell tolled, signaling the end of our time this round. Okay, back home. That was fun. What did she save? What did 11 save from us? I leaned against the wall, hand pressing against the familiar feeling and fiddling with a hole that I had made once upon a time with a nail to hang a whiteboard. Even now, I feel as though I could awaken to this nightmare to find all of this was a dream. Yet, I would not wake. Only one round remained of the game of life. After all the close calls I had in the past 2 games, I still had no idea how I died, having no time for introspection when running for my life. Wondered how I lost my life. Was I murdered? Some unknown entity had a grudge against me and brutalized me to the point of amnesia, even in the afterlife. What if I wanted to remember? What did we not remember? To the point where, like, it has to be intertwined with, Yansu, right? Was it a natural disaster? Climate change had certainly increased the instances of floods, landslides, fires, and whatnot in the region. I simply dropped dead of a heart attack. I'd always thought that my family's genes were pretty resilient. None of my grandparents ever having heart issues or strokes. None of these questions bore any results. Mulling over my uncleared death wouldn't give me any answers. We know what happened when we opened the front door last night. We got a cute visitor. Walked over to the front door and opened it. Anyone home? Or are we just going to get sucked into the next round right away? Nope, maybe we are getting sucked into the next round. The scenery had not changed from before. Pitch black, a monstrous darkness that threatened to spill into my apartment and devour me. I had a feeling that girl would. Slam. Hello. Immediately closing the door, 11 appeared beside me and kicked me in the shin. Yeah? What are you trying to do? As he lifted my leg to rub the place she had kicked me, I couldn't help but grin. Would you like to stay for some snacks? I walked over to the kitchen dining area and began digging through the snack cabinet filled with sweets and miscellaneous items, dumping them on the table. That would be alright with me. As I gathered my collection of snacks, she picked up a random wrapped candy and unwrapped it. What is this? Coffee candy. She popped the candy in her mouth. It's bitter. Oh, but there's sweet cream inside. Crunch. She made a face at the sensation of chewing past the hard candy shell, but it seemed that she didn't quite like the cream. For refreshments, I think today feels like time for some cold drinks, especially after the feast. Have some sweetened soy milk in the fridge, if that's alright. Yes, that would be fine. Walking over to the fridge, I retrieved 2 cans of soy milk and passed one to 11. She seemed to struggle to open the can via the tap, but before I could offer to help, she managed to open it and took a sip. Although it lacks fragrance, the sweet taste goes smoothly down my throat and washes away the coffee flavor. Yeah, tea person more than coffee. Rest in peace, coffee candy. So what's the next game? If you think bribing me with food and asking casually will get you answers, I'm afraid it won't work. Wait for the 3rd round to begin and you'll be informed of the rules. Oh, it's worth a try. Just a try. I tore open a pack of spicy strips and grabbed a pair of disposable chopsticks that had gotten mixed in with my stash. As I used the chopsticks to pick up the spicy strips to eat, Levin sent me a curious look. I offered with my chopsticks a strip, gaining a glower. Yet, not wanting to get her hands dirty, with a little pink rising to her ears, she opened her mouth and ultimately let me feed her a spicy strip. She She chewed and nodded in approval. There's a trial in court after finishing the 3 rounds, right? What happens to the people who lose then? You will become a meal for vengeful ghosts. The result is insane regardless of when you are in the game of life until you have gained the qualifications for reincarnation. Then she paused for just a moment. That said, should you catch the eye of the king in the 11th court, you may remove yourself from the game of life. Oh. Rather than winning or losing, you would become a denizen of the 11th court, serving under the king. I do not recommend it. I have a feeling you chose that route. Why? Are you contemplating it? I contemplated it. To stay in the underworld, accompanying the beautifully terrifying king along with monstrous ghosts, was not something I wanted. Perhaps the only one who seemed like a person at all here was 11. If she could just go to the real world instead, then that would be better. I shook my head. I want to go back to life. I do not think more of it and avoid the king's attention. 11 glanced around, perhaps finding the apartment too big for just one person. Do you have a family? Family? The question prodded at an old sadness that felt like a wound which had long scarred over. I don't have any immediate family, and I guess I don't have any extended family left either who I know of. I was mostly raised by my grandparents who passed away 2 years ago. I don't think I have any other relatives. Well, they were getting old in their 90s when they died, so it wasn't anything like a freak accident. They just got too old, got frailer, and one day they didn't wake up again. Though I'd heard that Grandma died right after Grandpa, leaving me all alone. My condolences. It's okay. Wonder if they've reincarnated already. Very old people don't come to the 11th court. What was the reasoning again? They're not very palatable. So they're certainly under the jurisdiction of another court and will certainly be reincarnated with that time, if they haven't been already. Trying to imagine my grandparents lining up to drink soup at Nahi Bridge, having their memories wiped away by Meng Po's magic liquid. I guess they'd forget me in their next lives. Yes, but the type of person someone is doesn't change very much. They were kind people, and I'm sure they will also be kind people in their next lives. If I weren't here, then perhaps I would have wanted to meet who raised you. But it's best if they never care. If they never have to come to the 11th court, regardless of lifetime. 11 sipped her soy milk. What happened with your parents? My parents died when I was young. Apparently, we were going on a trip to Chengdu when the car was hit by a speeding drunk driver. Ooh. He died protecting me. That's what I've always been told, at least. I don't have any scars from that. My grandparents said I was uninjured after the accident. I don't know. I was too young to even remember their faces, and I don't remember the accident. As I grew up, I felt sorry. I felt sorry because, to me, the people whom my grandparents mourned over, the people who protected me, were nothing more than dead strangers to me. Although it was nice to grow up knowing that I was loved. The people who gave me life and gave their lives for me. Perhaps I should be a little jealous that you have such a family. Yet, well, my family was dead. I really don't have any family left, and I'm even just a lonely single dog now. If you consider only the living and not your memories, I was also dead. Oof. Levin's word reminded me that even if my grandparents were gone, their memories lived on within me. What about you? Now that I've spilled my guts, shouldn't you also tell me a little something about your family? Only one of us is a judge. Do I look like I have a family? Those people are... No. She shook her head. The last round is coming. I will see you again if you survive through it. And she turned and left, disappearing as if she'd never come to my apartment in this dream-like interval between games. For long the low bell tolled, signaling the start of the third and final round. Darkness enveloped me, devouring the ground beneath me and covering my vision. The scenery to change, I closed my eyes, seemed to hear the hiss of a snake and the flow of a river. The air felt far too stagnant to be outdoors. Cave? What? When I opened my eyes, feeling the ground solidify under my feet, I found myself at a place stranger than the previous 2 games' locations. Glass walls surrounded me in all 4 directions. Beyond the glass walls stood more glass walls, forming a matrix of glass boxes. The walls extended just too high to be climbed, capped by the top by a similarly glass ceiling. Even the ground appeared to be lined by a layer of glass. Within each glass box stood one survivor, arriving at the third round just like me in some sort of podium. As everyone arrived, Levin's voice came from the sky as usual. Welcome to the third and final round of your trial. I will now explain the rules. The third round is an individual game. Each player will stay within their own box. Within their box will be a podium containing puzzles that must be solved in order. Solve all 9 puzzles before you drown. Your time limit is dependent on your Oh. Oh-ho. I glanced to the middle of my glass box at the mentioned podium, spotting a puzzle sitting there. The ground was still dry. This game was specially bestowed upon me by the King of the 11th Court. I am truly overjoyed. Good luck. And when she finished speaking, water began to trickle into my box from an unknown source, creating a puddle-like wet film beneath my shoes. Oh! Looked around, spotting Yanshu in a neighboring box. And I approached the glass adjacent to her box. Yanshu seemed to have the same idea. She too stood before the same glass as well. Stand back a little. Yanshu smacked the glass wall, but nothing happened. Let me try from my end. After Yanshu stood back, I stepped around, Hell's kicked the glass. Bonk! My foot bounced off the wall, sending me stumbling, leaving nothing but a bit of water from the ground on the glass. I don't think we'll be able to get past the glass. She did say that it's an individual game, didn't she? I glanced beyond the glass over at the podium in Yunsu's box, finding that even the shape of her puzzle appeared a little different from what was on my podium. Adjusting my stance, I felt my feet push against the water. Splish! Maybe it already risen to 2 centimeters. The water is already rising. Let's focus on our puzzles for now, alright? She nodded. I believe in you. I do. I believe in you too. Walking to my podium, I looked at the puzzle that sat on top of it. It was a metal puzzle made of many pieces that had to be put together, rotated, and adjusted to fit together. I held it in my hand and began to fiddle with it, trying to figure out how to solve it. Having received no instructions beyond to just solve it. Water began to seep into my shoes, soaking my socks uncontrollably. Oh wow! As I racked my brain, pushing pieces together, the water did not stop, gradually increasing as it rose. Click! I saw the first puzzle! Oh. The initial puzzle disappeared, and in its place came a similar but wholly different puzzle. The water level dropped along with the first disappearance. I let out a slight sigh of relief at the game's kindness. My pants, wet by the now lowered water, stuck to my lower legs. The trickling sound of water conveyed to me that just one puzzle wasn't enough to stop the flow. The water rose, click, the water fell. Despite having been able to solve 2 puzzles, I wasn't able to prevent the water from gradually going upward, soaking above my knees. I glanced over at some of the survivors' boxes, noticing that their water levels had reached far above mine and appeared to be increasing at different speeds. A few players gave up on puzzle solving and chose to instead throw their puzzles at the glass, smacking the walls in an attempt to get out. Click. Click. Click! Water undulated. My clothes stuck to my skin. Wet. My hands couldn't help but grow stiff as they forced cold, hard metal pieces together. I could feel my body temperature dropping as I began to shiver. The water wasn't warm like a swimming pool. Ooh, as I began to slow, I nicked my hand against a particularly sharp piece. The water stirred as a single droplet of red fell in, mixing and dispersing. I shook my head, I had to focus. Click! Luckily, I was able to get my 6th puzzle to click into place with my slightly numb fingers, hearing the satisfying click and filling the water lower. I took a deep breath before readying myself for the next puzzle of many. Bam! I jumped in surprise as a loud noise came from the back. I glanced backwards and saw my neighbor in that direction, smashing himself full body against the wall. trying desperately to get out as the water reached right below his nose. He was going to drown. As I met his eyes, I saw the water reach above his nose at standing height, and him trying to tread water, weighed down by his clothes. I turned back to my puzzle, averting my eyes from his look of despair. The voice was distracting. I had to focus. Eventually, the noise from the back weakened and stopped. Click. Didn't know how long had passed since the game had started, each puzzle taking a non-trivial amount of time to finish. Certainly must have been at least 2 to 3 hours now. So your sin was gentle enough that you could, that you are, scraping by here without your water getting too high. Plus you're making progress too, so... High sin, not insignificant, but not overwhelming. If the time limit theorem holds true. I adjusted to my standing position. My legs were growing sore, becoming stiff from the water and all the standing. I cracked my neck, gazing upward for a second to relieve my neck of the stress of looking down for so long. Yet I had no time to waste. Splish splash. The water rippled as I moved. Water at her waist? Okay, that's good. That's not too bad. Then I returned to my puzzle. Water reached my chest, encroaching on the podium's height. Frustratingly, I couldn't get this puzzle to work even as I nearly jammed my fingers, trying to piece it together. Water reached my chin, forcing me to lift the puzzle out above the water. As I adjusted the height of my vision, I inadvertently looked at the box in front of me. A dead person. Get up on the podium, Ailu. Get up on the podium. The person in the box in front of me was floating, his body floating face down in a box so full of water that his corpse was being pushed against the ceiling. My hand shook and nearly dropped the puzzle pieces I held. He began to sink. Click. The shock of seeing a corpse actually helped me solve that puzzle. What the heck? I almost wanted to laugh as I felt the water level drop back down below my waist, leaving all my clothes uncomfortably wet, but myself able to breathe. I didn't dare look toward my last neighbor who had been hitting the wall as well, but no longer made any noise. Water writhed, lapping upward at my torso as if disappointed. The last puzzle appeared before me, and without pausing, I grabbed it and began piecing it together. The configuration appeared even more complex than the previous 8. My fingers hurt. My arms couldn't stop shivering. Ah! Hearing Yanshu's voice, I immediately twisted to look in her direction, scared that she would also be drowning. Then I saw that the water level in her box was even a little below her waist. Oh! Yeah, good job, Yansu! Congratulations to the first person to complete all 9 puzzles. You have passed the 3rd round. A sense of relief rushed over my body. I'm glad. Before Yansu could do or say anything, an unknown force whisked her away and emptied her box. I turned my attention back to my final puzzle. I had to focus. My stiff fingers fiddled with this final puzzle, slowly but surely connecting the pieces and pushing them into the correct place after many, many moments of trial and error. Water once more reached my chin. As part of the puzzle, I fixed it to the podium. Now I had one last piece that I needed to connect to the puzzle, which I felt that I knew how to complete. And I could no longer pick the puzzle up and had to look through the distortion of the water. Just one piece. With a satisfying click, yet the budding sense of victory in my chest gradually turned to anxiety as the puzzle's final piece just wouldn't fit into place. Why was it not fitting? Was I trying to put it in the wrong place? Wouldn't it be really mean if the king was actively sabotaging? Last piece seemed to obviously fit in the last hole left, but it wasn't fitting. It wasn't clicking into place even as I ducked my head under the water to examine it more closely. Why wasn't it clicking into place? The water reached my nose. The puzzle wasn't clicking. Why? Water reached above my nose. I forced myself off the ground and began treading water, keeping my head above the water. Holding the last piece in my hand, I took a deep breath and dived. Why wasn't the puzzle piece fitting into the only place left to put it? I went for air and tried again to no avail. I repeated those steps a number of times. No matter what I did, no matter where I tried to insert the final piece, it seemed like an invisible hand. Invisible force was blocking me. Then as I went up for air for the nth time, I hit the ceiling. The glass box was filled with water already. I had no choice but to return to the podium. My lungs burned, my vision flickered. Gripping the puzzle on the podium and forcing the final piece into its hole, I wanted to cry, but there was too much water around to cry. The strength left me, like the cold and black of oxygen overwhelming me. I wondered if that was it. Unknown warmth, perhaps a hallucination, seemed to touch my hand. Click. The water above lowered. It was far too high for me at this moment to be able to swim up to. I was too tired. As black spots started to fill my vision, the water surface growing further as I sank, I heard Eleven's muffled voice making an announcement for me. Darkness covered my sight. The pressure of water seemed to disappear from around me. I felt a pair of soft lips press against mine that passed air to my empty lungs. My consciousness faded. 11 had to have intervened here. Part of me wonders if this was legitimately the king interfering with us, particularly. I saw a dream. In this dream I walked into a lonely courtyard, a place that looked like the set of a historical drama that Yansu liked. I spotted a girl whose face I could not make out. She appeared familiar. Even when I squinted, her facial features remained unclear. As I approached the door to the living space, the girl spoke and stopped me in my tracks. Who are you? Her voice sounded familiar, yet I could not remember who she was. Not speaking. Are you a servant sent by that woman, my stepmother? Oh no, she likes to be called madam by you servants, doesn't she? To scare me or ruin me. No, I'm not a servant, I stopped, realizing I didn't know how to explain myself. Surely my name wouldn't be useful information. I doubted that I had traveled through time in this dream. What, are you going to say that you're a mirror grinder flower thief who does the stealing during broad daylight? Rather, I might be a ghost? Think of a better excuse. Is that how ghosts dress? Looking down my outfit, I realized that I was still wearing normal, modern clothes. A shirt, jacket, jeans, sneakers. Certainly I didn't look like a ghost. Then I'm a ghost from the future. At the very least, I will concede that you might not be one of that woman's people. But you have no excuse for trespassing. I'm actually... Who are you and where am I? He then spoke slowly as if I were a fool. This is a courtyard in the Marquis Pignan residence. I am the firstborn legal granddaughter of Marquis Pignan. Or you could say that I am the daughter of Sir Shao, who executed his first wife 2 years ago. Her voice twisted at the mention of Sir Shao, her father, a man who married a stepmother who would harass his daughter, and a man who killed his wife. He seemed unpleasant. Especially those names, as if I was supposed to know who they were. This Sir Shao. Was his first wife your mother? The question slipped from my lips before I realized how inappropriate it was to ask a stranger about her dead parent within minutes of meeting her. Do you not know of our family history? Or is this another form of harassment to have me talk about it? No, I'm sorry, you don't need to talk about it if you don't want to. She paused. I see. You might as well hear the true version of the story rather than all the lies that have been spread. My mother was indeed the first wife of Sir Shao. A talented woman whose greatest flaw was loving a man like him. She was unable to bear him a male heir and disliked his concubines, many of which he took in during her pregnancy with me, and her miscarriage that could have been my brother. My father intended to divorce my mother for those 2 points. Despite her pride, she accepted the shame. However, my father's favorite concubine, that woman, you could even bear to see my mother alive. The woman planted items associated with witchcraft in my mother's room and had my mother accused of witchcraft in front of guests. Witchcraft? A crime worthy of the death penalty, but it was fake. In the first place, witchcraft is just feudal superstition. Why? You must be a foreigner. Witchcraft was outlawed in a decree by the previous emperor, and no one is free from punishment should they be caught doing it. Even an imperial concubine was executed 5 years ago for witchcraft. The rest of the story everyone knows. My mother was executed, my father never once trying to save her. No wonder she feels that way about her lot in life. She went through it. Rough family life. Her shoulders shook with an emotion that wasn't mirth. It also explains why she reacted so strongly to the warm feelings of a loving family, even if they had already died. Then he elevated his favorite concubine to the position of main wife not 2 months after my mother's death. That one who killed my mother. Well, we'll see if she can bear him his desired heir. His backyard is far too messy. There's a reason why there's been no movement in anyone's stomach for years now. Ah, that's karma for you. It is surprisingly refreshing to say all of these things out loud. I don't even have the trusted maidservant who I can say those things to. I suppose I'm taking a risk by speaking to a stranger, a person who calls herself a ghost. I can at least promise that I won't tell anyone what you've told me. Even though I couldn't see her face, she seemed terribly lonely. But are you okay? She didn't have anyone to the point where she didn't have anyone to the point that when someone came to her courtyard, she assumed that it must have been an enemy sent by those who call themselves her family. In fact, if I had been malicious, it didn't seem like anyone would have stopped me. She had no family and no one to accompany her. Because that means you're alone here. So I am. What do you want to do? What do I want to do? Is there anything I can do? If I could even just poison that woman, then I would be satisfied. But where can I get my hands on poison as a boudoir girl? Poison, huh? I don't know if you have any poisonous flowers growing here, but sufficient amounts of nutmeg can kill an adult. Are apples a thing already? Apple seeds also hold some poison, but it'd be hard to get someone to eat enough to be fatal. Be mixed into something. That's good to know. Maybe you also need to be careful about her poisoning you. I appreciate the concern, stranger. If I were a son, then certainly that woman would have already tried to have me killed. As a girl, the worst shit that she'll try is to ruin my reputation and marry me off to an old lecher. For all that he is scum, my father would be upset if the asset that he's had raised for so many years was ruined when he could have instead used me for benefits. Like he prefers to keep his only daughter out of sight and out of mind until he finds the right person to make a marriage alliance with. What a chauvinistic scumbag. Yes, he is. I contemplated aloud. What if finding someone to elope with would be hard? With who would I elope? With me? She got close to me and whispered into my ear, her breath tickling against my cheek. For some reason I noticed that she smelled nice. I'll let you in on the secret. I only like women. In other words, people would call me a mirror grinder. Hey. She had us pegged from the start. She called us a mirror grinder flower thief. She had us pegged from... She had Hailu pegged from first glance. She returned to our initial distance and laughed. That woman would certainly love to hear this. If there was a decent man willing to elope with a marquis's granddaughter, I wouldn't be interested. I have few female friends and don't know anyone who would elope with me. Would I elope with you? I'm a good comrade, too. I also like women. It's impossible because I'm not from this town and I'm dead for now. I'll keep your secret, though. What a shame. You seem like someone I could get along with, given time. Well, if I weren't dead, then I wouldn't have minded trying. We chatted a little longer. My body flickered, becoming partially see-through. Ah, so you are, in fact, a ghost. She stretched out a hand to touch mine, not passing through me as I expected. Instead of retracting her hand, she held mine and ran her fingers across my palm. Her touch tickled. Is it cold to be dead? No, not really. But you're warm. I see. I flickered again. Looks like I have to go now. Body grew more and more transparent, a tugging sensation at the edge of my mind trying to pull me out of this courtyard. Goodbye. Don't get yourself executed for witchcraft, and maybe we'll meet again one day. Yeah, maybe we'll meet again one day. Oh! Full glance. The dream ended. Oh. I groggily opened my eyes. Nearly toppling over as I regained consciousness. My clothes had dried from when I had nearly drowned, and I was sitting in a chair. The chair for the moment I first met 11, in that same dark place. Oh. 11 stood before me, evoking a strange feeling of familiarity within my chest. Congratulations on passing all 3 trials. You will soon be judged for the 11th court to determine your final fate. However, as you obtain the eye of the king, you will like to be judged unfavorably. Is the king the one who makes the final judgment? In theory, no, but in essence, yes. The 11th court is ruled by the king of the 11th court, and despite its name, it is outside the 10 courts of hell. I stood up. Wait. If you say that, it's outside the 10 courts, I don't know what you're trying to imply. There are too many interpretations of the afterlife. For example, the number of courts often changes between 18 and 10, depending on which reading someone is using. I furrowed my brows. The 10 courts are the true authority of hell, in charge of punishment and reincarnation of the dead. 10 courts would never allow a dead person to undo their death. While the 11th court has the power to do it, should you expect justice, then you would be sorely disappointed. It has simply gone unnoticed thus far that the 11th court is doing what it is. Oh! Fun! Loopholes! There's a set of drums before the 10 courts that require extreme conviction of will to use. They are the drums to petition the King of Hell, King Yanluo, to take attention to injustice in their realm. Once the drums are sounded, the 10 courts are obligated to act. Why tell me this? She paused and gazed at me. I am at least a little fond of you, and I have someone who I am very much not fond of. If you can pass this court's judgment and return to your life in the realm of the living, then I will be happy for you. However, should you be devoured by the 11th court, then your soul will cease to exist. In that case, reincarnation would be kinder. Even if it means that I would forget you? Why would you want to remember me? 11, you're worth remembering. 11? Somehow I seemed a little silly, saying such things about remembering her when I still didn't even know her name. It's a nickname since I don't know your real names. You're the judge of the 11th court, so 11. I see. My name is not 11, but you are welcome to refer to me as such when speaking to others. What is your name, then? That's a secret. I'll tell you my name. Speaking of names, I realized I'd never told her mine. I should properly introduce myself to you. My name is Qian Hai Lu. Qian like thousand, Hai like sea, and Lu like dew. I traced my fingers through the air, writing out the strokes of my name. She let out a soft laugh. I already knew your name. Qian Hai Lu. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, too, but it's a pretty name for a beautiful person. My heart, for some reason, skipped a beat. I felt a little heat pool to my cheeks. And the low bell tolled. The scenery around me shifted. The darkness receded to reveal an open courtroom. The moment I blinked my eyes in surprise, Levin disappeared from before me. Whoa! Hello, Judge. She appeared, stepping up to the judge's table in front and taking a seat. I looked around, finding ghastly spectators lingering in the shadows, and hello, ma'am! Looking upward, I saw a second-floor balcony, where above the judge's table the king sat upon a throne. The king overlooked us with shadowy advisors, standing silently as they flanked her. Oh! Yansu! Then appeared before me, stumbling as if she too was pulled from another location. Hailu? Yeah. I think this is it. Watching the two of us with hungry eyes, the ghosts murmured and were silenced as Levin slammed a rectangular wooden slab, the gavel, to the table, signaling the start of court. Defendants, welcome to the 11th court, and congratulations on passing all 3 rounds of the game of life. The ghosts laughed. It is here that your actions through your trials be used to reevaluate your status. We summarized the 3 trials, which still felt far too unreal. Rushed down a mountain at night, a search for a key within a mansion, and a box where I nearly drowned. Then, pulling out a book, she began to note our actions. Oh, not every moment was recorded. I felt a chill down my spine, hearing the recollection of those terrible games and realizing how much the king's ghosts have been surveilling us. As noted, both players passed the 3 trials without issue, including the final decided by our king. Eleven met my eyes and gave me a slight nod. It was going to be okay. As the judge of the 11th court, I declare Kian Hai Lu and Chen Yansu not They have been judged to be guilty. King stood from her throne. The air froze, and 11 paled. King sent 11 a sharp look and snapped her fingers, dismissing the illusion of a courtroom to leave only a dark hellscape. I could barely breathe as the king exerted power, which I could almost see emanating from her body. Yansu did not seem to be in a better state. Oh no! Before we could react, a number of ghosts surrounded us and grabbed our limbs, holding us in place. Whoop! Hello. The king descended from the balcony and walked toward 11. Smack! Oh! King slapped 11, leaving an ugly red mark on her face. 11 did not fight back and simply stood in place. My sacrificial wife, I wonder why is it that you think you can disobey my intentions for this pair of humans? I tried to speak up, but my body was frozen. My tongue was frozen. I couldn't move. King roughly grabbed 11's chin, fingers digging into 11's face. Your father married you to me, throwing you to the bottom of my river weighed down by stone. Oh no. Thought that you were beautiful when you were drowned, so I took you in as my first wife. In fondness of you, of all the time we spent together, I have always kept you as my main wife, in bestowing upon you this position to play with in my court as my mouthpiece. Seeing 11 refused to look at her, the king yanked 11's chin upwards. Is this the gratitude you show me? Whoa, hello! The king turned in my direction, pulling 11 to also do so. The judge who has chosen to help you is nothing more than my woman. She and this entire court belong to me. Oh boy. Why is it that my woman likes to rebel so much? Although I do like them feisty, I thought that I had already broken you in. Is it that the meat you have eaten was too unfresh, causing your sense to rot away as well? Certainly there's a meal to be had soon. Thinking of a meal, the king's mismatched eyes roamed over Yansu and me. I could almost hear the ghosts of Oldingus salivating, and the king looked at 11 again. But I will need to discipline you later. This was wrong. It was wrong. I couldn't understand why 11 would just take those words from the king. I couldn't accept the way that the king treated 11. The king was going to have Yansu and me eaten, then I wanted to at least give her a slap back. You! Words slipped past my frozen tongue. I coughed, feeling control returned to my body. However, when I tried to charge forward at the king, the ghosts held me firmly in place. The king glanced toward me for a second. Kneel. Then she exerted more power, forcing 11 down to her knees. Making a gesture, the king had the ghosts drag me over and throw me to the ground. The ghosts pulled me up just enough to force me to kneel before the king. The king stared at my eyes with her mismatched snake eyes, making my blood curdle. She was a predator. My instincts screamed at me. She was a monster, I already knew that. What should you do to make my woman so interested? To choose you in her little rebellion? Little ugly and deformed. Certainly without any sense and not enough ability to even pass the 3 trials without her help. I can't see why she would aim for your favor, you puny, insignificant worm. Maybe that you're blind. Maybe that you're blind. I would have rather married someone like her instead of you. Ooh! Before I could process 11's words, the king's armored boot smashed into my gut. She kicked me so hard that if it weren't for the ghosts holding me, I would have gone flying. Gah! My consciousness cut for a moment. My mouth filled with a metallic taste and red spilled from my mouth. I heaved, trying to breathe through the pain. What was up? What was down? What just happened? I heard Yansu's scream. You did in my jumbled mind. Just for a second, I felt glad that I was already dead. I'm divorcing you. Power move! A low sound of drums echoed through this dark space. Since you named me judge of this court, I have the authority to execute this divorce order. We are now divorced. Goodbye. The sudden vibration shook me to my core, even as my vision was slowly clearing up. I knew what these drums were, even though I couldn't see them. 11 had done something to sound the drum of the 10 chords. I should have done this a long time ago. You! What? Still so afraid of the 10 chords that you hide your pitiful little kingdom in its rotten court from? I can't believe I'm so enamored with your fake. Bam! Ooh! The king kicked 11, sending her flying across the ground. Then the king stormed up toward 11 and stomped on 11's chest. Gah! King lowered herself onto 11 and grabbed 11's neck. Oh God, you foolish woman, do you know what you've done? When the 10 chords come down on us all, you will also be purged. Despite all of that, 11 didn't apologize. Instead, she laughed, a wheezing laugh through her throat. It was being held by the king's hands. Would I not know? Would I not know? We can all be punished together. Punished together? No, I'll be the one to devour you myself before those bastards can do anything. No matter what, you will be nothing but mine. The king began to squeeze. Even though I knew that I was too weak to do anything, I struggled against the ghosts holding me, trying to reach 11. 11 pushed away from the king, but to no avail, twitching as she struggled to breathe. Her hands brushed against the ground as if she was searching for something, and as her struggles grew weaker and weaker, she managed to pull a scalpel out from the ground. Ooh! Taking that scalpel into her hand, she stabbed the king. The king recoiled for just a second. But 1 second was enough for 11 to slip out from beneath the king and roll away, just out of the king's reach. 11 struggled to her feet. The king made to grab 11 again. The sound of marching entered my ears. I felt the grip of the ghosts holding me loosened a little. Ghosts beginning to shudder and whisper amongst themselves. Ooh! White-haired, androgynous person walked into this scene with a group of soldiers marching behind them. I am the king of hell, King Lanwo. Who is the petitioner who sounded the drums? 11 stood up straight, finding her balance, and saluted with her hands clasped together. I am. Greetings to King Lanwo. I am Xiao Yiwen, the humble spirit who has sounded the drums of the 10 chords to petition for justice. That was how I learned her name. Xiao Yiwen. It was a pretty name, fitting her well. What is the crime which you have called upon the 10 chords for? Pointing at the king of the 11th court, 11 began. Pointing to King Luo, I'm here to accuse the snake demon in her court of not one, but many crimes. She's attempted to usurp the power of the Diu government and commit treason by creating an 11th court outside of the 10 courts to process the dead. She has been deliberately creating vengeful ghosts from the deceased via cruel machinations, tricking innocents into thinking that they are sinners. Ah! There was no sin. 11 gestured to Yansu and me. She's also been stealing the dead from the 10 courts, eating humans, and destroying the stolen souls, nor in doing so. This removes souls from the cycle of reincarnation and is against the balance of the world. King Lunwo nodded. I see. And I have no reason to allow you to continue. Hey, snake! That explains why there was a snake content warning. A giant snake, the king of the 11th court, transformed into a giant snake with the sound of rushing torrents. I fell to the ground in shock as the grip of the ghosts holding onto me disappeared. The ones holding me were running away. Don't you run, you traitorous cowards! As I scrambled to my feet, I saw that the ones that had been holding onto Yansu similarly began to flee. The cowardly ghost didn't make it very far before being swatted by the Snake King with her large tail and swallowed whole. King Yanluo pulled out their sword. The snake demon has committed crimes and will be subdued and slain if she does not stand down and accept judgment. Their soldiers pulled out their swords. The remaining ghosts on the Snake King's side prepared themselves to fight as well. As both sides began to fight, Yansu landed up to me and gingerly examined my slightly bloodied shirt. Hi Lu, are you alright? Although my torso still felt incredibly sore, I was still alive and the adrenaline of the moment likely numbed the pain. I could be better, but I think I'm alright. Are you? Clang! Before we could talk any further, a soldier rushed between us and a monster that we hadn't even noticed. kept down the monster, and without pausing, went to continue fighting. And a huge blade made of water rushed by us, only a meter away, splitting the soldier in half. Looked away, feeling a budding nausea rise up to mix with the blood in my mouth. We were sitting ducks here. I tugged at Yansu, who couldn't tear her eyes away from what just happened. We're a bigger target for it together, so let's split up and try to get out of the way. Yansu hesitated, but eventually nodded. You better not die. Same to you. We split up, running in different directions. As I reached a distance sufficiently far away from the center of the conflict, I could not but keep an eye on the fighting on 11, Xiao Yuan. I spotted 11 bend down to a defeated soldier and pick up his sword after offering a few words. And she rushed into the fray, smashing into the head of a vengeful ghost, moving into the direction of the Snake King. Clang! Clang! The ghosts and soldiers clashed. The Snake King, huge as she was, swatted the battlefield indiscriminately with her giant body, manipulating the huge sections of water to drown and cut. It felt unreal. King Yanluo chased after the Snake King, attacking with her sword. The fight between the two appeared almost like a dance. With each attack, the other dodged and retaliated with shining cuts, splashing water. 11 rushed in, chasing after the Snake King as well. Falling in step with King Yanluo, she stabbed and slashed at the Snake King fearlessly. I wanted to rush in and help, but I was too scared, too weak. I wanted to grab a sword too, but I felt that I would just get in the way. Damn it! 11's added presence began to throw the Snake King on the defensive, maybe because of how long 11 had accompanied her for. A large wave of roaring water flew toward the two attackers with a low swipe at the Snake King's tail, making my heart nearly stop. Water itself was split apart by King Yanluo's blade. Unreal! And with one smooth movement, King Yanluo cut off the Snake King's tail. Ah! Blood sprayed out like hose water. Red, leaking red, the tail bounced on the ground and twitched a few times before stopping. The Snake King flew back many meters, making a tactical retreat from King Yanluo when she spotted me watching. Then she came charging at me! Ah! I couldn't dodge. A blur of black and red dashed in front of my eyes before I could even brace myself. I heard a crunching sound that shouldn't have come from the human body. No, 11, no! Warm red blood sprayed in my face. Ah! 11 had thrown herself in front of me, trying to block the Snake King, and gotten herself impaled through the chest with a terribly large fang! Her body was limp at the Snake King's mouth, far too much blood dripping on the ground, belly with her red dress, but she still held onto the sword. Time seemed to stop. The snake was going to eat her. Suddenly the snake jolted and threw 11 to the side instead, sending her body hurtling through the air. King Yanluo had come chasing after the snake. The Snake King and King Yanluo resumed their violent dance. Oh no! We ran to 11, ignoring the sword that had fallen now a meter away from her body. It was too ambitious. So much blood spilling from her body. The red suited her. This was far too much red. Held her. I didn't know what to do to stop the red from flowing. Maybe I'm still just a weak little girl in the end. I shook my head profusely. No, she was so strong. I didn't know what to do. I didn't have anything to patch her up with, and even if I tried to put pressure on the wound, it was far too large for my hands to stop the blood. She coughed, her tattered body convulsing. I'm glad that I rebelled against her. That I did it before she devoured you, too. I've said I'm rather fond of you. You don't need to talk. She shook her head. If we've only known each other for a short period of time, I really am fond of you. My heart seemed to constrict. I felt as if something was stuck in my throat. I'm also fond of you, really. I like you. I think we could become really close given time. She was a kind person, although she held herself with a cold exterior, prickly at times. Underneath, she was warm in a way that couldn't be destroyed. By only knowing her for so little time, I already caught a glimpse of that. That whole cold exterior is just a defense mechanism of one being raised in a family than a household that ultimately grew to despise her, and two, dying and being married to you've seen her, the Snake Queen, the Snake King. And, you have a really pretty name, Yuan. What if she didn't like her family name, Xiao? If I were her, I would have discarded that name of a useless family that threw me away. Is that so? Then call me by that name. Yeah, Yuan is really pretty. So are you. Her words tickled my heart, but I couldn't feel happy when she was still bleeding. Is there a way to save you? Any afterlife magic or anything? I'm just a washed-up, divorced woman. What's the point? Something snapped in my brain. Then marry me. You shouldn't say that so easily. I was chastised. Marriage wasn't as simple as proposing and figuring it out later. Or someone who couldn't even work out a long-term dating relationship. Just didn't want you to give up. But I shouldn't give up just yet. Because that snake is still here. Kiss me and give me some of your life power. The essence of your soul, if you're willing to. I kissed her. Her lips were soft. Warm energy passed from me to her. Is that what she did for us when we were drowning at the end of the third trial? She bit down my lower lip, drawing blood. Then, prodding with her warm tongue, she licked the blood from my lip. A tingling feeling rushed through me. My heart skipped a beat. Focused on kissing her, on passing life power on her soft lips. My face was definitely flushed, my heart racing with an emotion far from fear, much closer to delight. Our lips parted. For air? No, it seemed that we were done. Lips appeared redder than before. The flow of blood from her chest had stopped. Oh, I helped you went to her feet. Thank you. Her complexion looked better. She was blushing, pink reaching her ears in the cutest way. She walked to the side to pick up her sword, but rather than jumping back into the fray, she returned to my side. We looked toward the still continuing fight between the Snake King and King Yanluo. The Snake King appeared to be losing, bleeding from many cuts into the myriad of puddles on the ground. King Yanluo chased after her, swinging their blade relentlessly. No longer was it a dance, now it was a hunt. Like before, even I could follow the Snake King's movements. All the vengeful ghosts I appeared to have been dealt with by the 10 court soldiers. I spotted Yansu standing near a few soldiers, being protected from any watery attacks. I felt relieved that she was safe. Ah! The Snake King began to flee from King Yanluo. Yet perhaps furious that Yi Wen had called the 10 courts upon her, the Snake King charged in our direction. You! No. Yi Wen charged the giant snake with their sword in hand as well. She and the Snake King had their own short, violent dance that lasted only as long as it took for Yi Wen to get on top of the giant snake. Stabby, stabby! Taking advantage of the weakened Snake King's lapse in judgment, Yi Wen stabbed the sword into the Snake King's forehead. Ah! She pushed it into the Snake King's brain and forced the Snake King into a dirty puddle with a splash. The snake convulsed and stopped moving. I don't belong to anyone. She kicked the snake corpse. I'm my own master now. King Yanluo approached, looking over the giant snake with a sword in her hand. Nodding to Yi Wen and me, they sheathed their sword and retrieved a strange artifact from their sleeve. With a quietly murmured spell, they held the artifact out toward the snake. The snake was sucked into the artifact and disappeared from our sight. The snake demon has been judged and sealed. After that, King Yanluo had their people clean up. Yansu joined Yi Wen and me, standing off to the side waiting. She looked at our bloodied bodies and couldn't help but worry, in a way that brought a sense of peace to my heart. By the time the people from the 10 courts finished, this place looked almost as if no fight had occurred. Now, we must deal with you 3 remaining. 2 human souls, Qian Hailu and Chen Yansu, should be returned to the cycle of reincarnation. Xiao Yuwen must also be punished for her part in the false 11th court and removed from the cycle of reincarnation. Oh, so King Yanluo spoke, but I couldn't accept that judgment. I was thinking I stepped protectively in front of Yuwen. Then, realizing that I couldn't do anything to protect her, I dropped to my knees and prostrated myself before King Yanluo. Yuwen should not be punished for the deeds of the Snake King. Why do you say that? I looked up, adjusting to a kneeling position as I saw that King Yanluo did not appear to be upset by my request. However, they did not appear to accept it either. She's also a victim of the Snake King. Instead of being punished, she should be rewarded for her meritorious deeds in saving our lives and revealing the crimes of the fake 11th court. King Yanluo, please spare her. Following my lead, Yansu kneeled before King Yanlo as well. I don't know what she did in the past, but I know that she helped us. The reason that you came here and found out about the Snake King's wrongdoing should be her sounding those drums. King Yanlo looked at the three of us. Yansu and I were kneeling while Yuan made no movement to beg for mercy no movement to beg for amnesty. Yuan shook her head. Thank you, but I will take my punishment. Everything I've done is for my own selfish reasons. What sort of expression was that? Were you really satisfied? I wanted to ask Yuan if this was really alright. My chest constricted, and I wanted to shout out that being human meant being selfish. That wasn't being selfish alright? I didn't want to see her go out burning together with the people she hated. I felt that she still had life left to live, even if we were all already dead. It was sabotaging our efforts to save you. Didn't know what sort of expression I was making. Well, yet I could see her smile. Remember me, instead. She smiled as if a weight had been removed from her shoulders. For example, remember that Yuan existed, and Yuan was here. Yi like harmony. Wen like multicolored clouds. If Hailu can remember Yuan, then Yuan will be satisfied enough. Letting out a light chuckle, she paused and tilted her head towards Yansu. And if Chen Yansu remembers me, then I won't be unhappy either. Yansu looked away, a little shy. Yuan bowed to King Yanle, making her own request to the King of Hell. Please grant the two humans the reward that the false 11th court promised them, King Yanle. They were forced to go through 3 cruel games with the promise that they would be allowed to undo their deaths and return to the world of the living. The power left in the Snake King, that had stolen power, should be enough to return the two of them to life. We seem to be receiving many requests today. Then King Yanlo nodded. That is agreeable. It wasn't agreeable to me. I wanted to go back to life, but if we were to be like this, then we would just be trading our lives for her life, even if she had died a long time ago. King Yanlo, please spare her. Why? I met King Yanlo's eyes, and I realized that they were cold. Terribly, terribly cold. Because her life isn't that snake demon's thing. It wasn't the snake's thing. It wasn't her father's thing. Both of those people took her life away from her, and I felt like that was so unfair. In what world was it okay? My tears dripped onto the ground. I realized that I was crying. Silence. Then, let Xiao Yuan live out a human life first. Live out the life taken from her by the snake demon, and then be judged again by the 10 courts after her death. At that time, as a human being like she should have been all along. Eh? A few decades is not an issue to wait. As to say, you will all return to the realm of the living to live out the remainder of your lives. We will see you again at the 10 courts one day. King Yanlo made a few gestures with their hands and began to chant a spell that I could not understand. We're winning? We're winning? Soon enough, this place began to be covered in particles of light. Rather, perhaps, the 3 of us were turning into light. Thank you. King Yanlo did not acknowledge her words any longer. Yansu stood up, brushing off her knees. She seemed to squint as if looking at something bright when gazing at Yuan and me before shaking her head. Woo! And mouthing "see you later," she turned and disappeared to the light. Yuan took my hand and pulled me up to my feet. Let's go. Warm light enveloped us. The events of that time felt just like yesterday. In a blink of an eye, 4 years had already passed since the game of the life incident in the afterlife, which we never spoke about it to anyone else. Yansu, Yuan, and I were all doing well and keeping in touch. Yansu had gotten incredibly busy recently. The company which she worked for making a breakthrough on cancer T-cell therapy and going through very successful clinical trials. Whoa! Nice! As a major contributor to that project, her career seemed bright, but unfortunately her free time was completely blocked out. I hadn't been able to meet with her in person much in past months. As for Yuan, she had been dropped into my apartment as she was in the underworld as a living, breathing human being 4 years ago. A few difficulties arose with getting identification paperwork settled, but connections never failed to help. At the moment she was going to school, funded by the government, and working part-time as an expert on ancient China. Handy? I didn't know how, but she managed to convince the government that she was, in fact, from the distant past without being dissected or institutionalized. Well then, she became something of a minor VIP in the right circles. My career was also going rather smoothly, but all those thoughts about our work and careers were just floating around my mind because I was feeling a tad nervous. Think that I'd be thinking about that sort of thing on a Friday afternoon. The moment I was sitting around in my apartment, filling with a little box in my jacket pocket, what I was really thinking about was my girlfriend. Yuen and I were dating. The little box in my pocket was something that I had prepared for her. As I thumbed the corners of the box, finding them soft and rounded, wondered if she would like it when she arrived. Knock knock. Oh, casual Yuen. I went to the open door, finding Yuen there. Come in, how was your day? It was alright. Chat for a while in the doorway about our day and various miscellaneous topics before Yuen suddenly took my hand into hers. Oh? How do engagements work in the modern world? Between women, that is. Eh? Rain seemed to turn to a halt. I want to ask you to marry me. Wow! Power move. Beat her to the punch. My heart skipped a beat, and I felt my cheeks begin to heat up. My face must have been terribly red. That beautiful smile of hers. She continued talking while playing with my fingers. I am unable to give you a dowry, and we haven't compared our 8 characters. But it seems that those little rituals of the past are of little matter now. I love you, Hailu. I love you too! My heart was about to burst from happiness. Will you marry me? I nodded. Of course! I prepared rings to propose, too. I pulled out the little box from my pocket. Dropping on one knee, I opened up the little box and revealed the ring that I had chosen after sneakily asking her weeks ago. Will you marry me, Yuen? Yes, of course. With hands trembling from joy, I slipped the ring onto her ring finger. She gestured for me to give her a ring, put on me as well, and I pulled out another little box from my other pocket. Then, this means you promise to spend a long, happy lifetime with me. She slipped the matching ring onto my ring finger. I nodded. Yeah. Close your eyes. We kissed. A warm, soft kiss filled with love. Yeah! Oh! Wow, that was beautiful. Oh, so you... I was curious, so you're both worked on the route separately. Ah, that was a beautiful... That was a beautiful route, though. That was very... That was very Sheena. Ah, that was beautiful, though. Oh. Also, I learned way more than I was expecting about, the 10 Courts, underworld, Chinese mythology. Really interesting topics, which I might... But... And just briefly poking around and random pausing between, various segments of this playthrough, which was largely done in one sitting. I, did pick up on the clear difference in, readings between there being 10 quarts and 18, in theory. But really clever idea, really clever thought with the, Easy, clear. Easy. Oh, that's cool. Oh, there's one more left here, which is probably Mimi ending. So there's 6 bad endings, Yuen ending, and a Yunsu ending, no doubt. Well, I haven't actually seen So, yep, this is gonna be probably fit this into 2 parts. We have another 3-hour video, but alas, it's worth it. Full playthrough. Ewen route. It's a beautiful journey, though. A beautiful journey, and honestly, really wholesome connection between Hailu and Ewen built up throughout the course of the game here. It does leave us with I suspect that the Unsu scenario will in fact answer the rest of our questions, like how we died, how we ended up here to begin with, and perhaps more directly addressing Hailu and Yunsu's failed relationship. It seems, if I had to presume, based on what little we got so far of them, I would presume that it was just a case of they both grew up, got full adulting jobs, got busy as their careers advanced, and just gradually grew apart because they're both socially awkward, socially not fully. I don't want to say not fully socially mature, but socially awkward, socially I don't know what the right way of putting that is, but just drifted apart. Drifted apart, the relationship. Just work got in the way. They all got busy in their respective careers. They very clear that Hailu and Yunsu have their own separate careers, going their own way. Got busy, got stressful, and that just communication broke down. And no particular resentment in the relationship failing, just wouldn't say they parted on bad terms. They still very clearly got on well, and as soon as they reunited together, started this. I'm also realizing that on the haze, the title screen, we can vaguely see the silhouettes of Ewen and Yunsu. Ewen on the left here, Yunsu on the right. So I am very curious. So next video will be Yunsu route and all the bad endings. That'd be all the bad endings. So full completion. The final prize is soup. And we'll cover the extras too. Just as dev notes, but we'll save dev notes for after the fact. Dev notes are always a fun read. I like reading about the thought process and little quirks that went through here. And also reading the dev notes for Lachesis Theatripos. It's very clear that a ton of thought goes into the mythology behind everything here. So this is definitely worth checking out then. But when the connection is really a beautiful connection. More directly focused on Ewen's character than Hailu. Reaching her rather than drawing out Hailu's character. Hailu's character more directly tied to Yunsu, which will probably be the focus of her scenario that we'll experience next time. Because, yes? And, yeah, because we do still have those unanswered questions. The win route, not just as focused on her character and that connection really giving her the strength to rebel. I don't honestly know. Really curious to see if this final confrontation, ringing the bells, the 10 chord, or bang the drums, the 10 court, to summon them for justice. If that's a universal final confrontation, or if that was a unique event of Ewen's route. We'll see. We'll find that out next time too. I'm really curious to see the remaining questions if we'll get answers for how we died. One piece of that we did get answered, based on Ewen and the Snake King, is that we were not actually sinners. That is a lie. We were plucked out of the 10 courts to join this death game and then be eaten. But beyond that, we still have the question of how we died. And that may be directly tied, how we both died, that may be directly tied into how Hailu and Yuwen, Hailu and Yensu broke up. We'll find out next time, though. Until then, if you made it to the end of this video, tell me what your favorite kind of soup is. You deserve some good soup for making it to the end of this playthrough. Go get yourself some good soup. Let me know what your favorite kind of soup is. I'm particularly partial to a good clam chowder myself. Until then.